What we have to do with you is tell the story. We have to have the facts in place. We have to have the information, and then we have to have the guts. The guts to stand up and say, this is our country. So you are the patriots. You're the American patriots 250 years after the country was founded. And I applaud you for your work. And what I'm telling you is I'm going to help you. I'm going to help empower you. I'm going to help you get your story out. And I'm going to help you get the momentum and the movement you need from the people who really can get every leader in the country to pay attention.
Welcome to the War Room, a weekly roundtable discussion that takes place every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in at 911warroom.com/Zoom.
Welcome to the War Room. My name is Gene.
My name is Sandra. This is officially episode 162 of the 9/11 War Room. It'll be a little bit of a different format today. We usually cover 9/11 news, any new developments in the last week that we share. We have discussions about initiatives, activism normally. Today, this week, we've had really big developments, and it really involved people from all the organizations that we can think of that have any impact on 9/11 truth and are involved with it and have made it their mission to bring the truth out and get justice for the victims. I guess everybody knows why we're here. Curt Weldon is the man that we're talking about, and that's okay. I'll just give a 1 minute quick recap of how we got here for those who are not really in touch with the ins and outs of the everyday developments.
If you don't mind, real quick, I want to start off with a clip from the latest interview, AE 9/11 Truth, Andy Steele, Roland Angle, Leroy Halsey were with him. Fantastic interview. And here's a clip. Just this guy is a spitfire. And here we go.
The 9/11 Commission report is a joke. It's a joke. I can tell you from my standpoint, from Intel, there's no question about it. What I want to do is empower you, because you're the experts on buildings, to tell the story of what really happened with Building 7, as well as other buildings, the two main tower buildings. When I watched the film that was shown to me, it was produced in 2020 by your team members, and I saw that New York firefighter enter floor 78 of the tower and report back verbally that he saw two fires and he could handle them. And 5 minutes later, the building collapses. I said, wait a minute, this is outrageous. I can't believe that we haven't investigated this before now. So I'm here to tell you, I'm burning mad. I'm burning mad because this is who I am. Nobody's paying me for anything. I don't have any consulting contracts. I don't have any fear. The worst they can do to me is kill me. So I applaud you for your work, and I'm here to say I'm going to help you understand how to tell your story.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, thank you, AE 9/11 Truth, for that fantastic interview. I'll deflect to you guys in a second. I'll go to Sandra first.
Yeah. So just basically, very, very quickly, it started off with a random email that Jane received at work because it's in construction about the NFPA conference that was taking place in Boston that year. That was a couple of years ago. And he threw the email, Richard's way. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, this is Boston. Bring it to Boston, 9/11 Truth. And they put it all together. We said, okay, let's send a team to the NFPA. Let's bring the evidence over there. We hauled in Eric Lawyer, founder of Firefighters for 9/11 Truth. He had been chipping away at Raoul for a few years, I think. And Raoul had accepted at the time to join the team. And so Boston had that 3 or 4 day presentation at the NFPA, which was followed by an NFPA presentation. Basically, the team that was formed was PAPA, Protecting All Protectors. And the following year, they were in Las Vegas, and the last one was in Orlando. And that one brought in Paul Simon, or Paul Cayley, rather, from the UK, and Tony Robbins from Kansas City. Am I missing anyone?
They told us at that NFPA convention that the presentations that were from the gentleman was the largest turnout of all the NFPA presentations that they had that year. So
Right.
definitely making waves.
Yeah, it had a huge impact, and Raul connected with people that he knew at the convention, among others. I don't know if he's the editor or the owner, but of International Fire Safety Journal. And, they talked about writing an article. And Raul said, yeah, I've been, giving conferences and teaching, and I write, and I'd be happy to do that. Produce an 8,000-word article that appeared in its entirety on the website, but will be split up over 4 or 5 segments in the hard copy edition. So it's going to have quite the lifespan there. And I believe from there, Raul hit AE 9/11 Truths Radar, and Andy and Roland and Kamal, I believe, and I think it was Craig who got the ball rolling there. Reached out to Raul, and Raul said, yeah, and they had an amazing interview that also got a lot of legs, a lot of views. And that was also followed up by an article that Paul Cayley wrote for AE, which was a great article. He is also the producer of the documentary Calling Out Bravo 7, another top documentary out there. So yeah, and then I think that's pretty much
That's a good wrap.
then yeah, I guess either you take it over if you want to hand it over to Raul. So this played out over the last 3 years and got us to where we are now.
First, if I could go to Andy or Roland on how your takeaways from getting to talk to Curt Weldon for that hour plus.
Well, I'll take it. This is an amazing opportunity, and one is I believe it's the only opportunity we may have during the lifetime of people that lived through 9/11 to really make progress in getting to the bottom of what happened that day. And Curt Weldon is a terrific representative. He has the connections, he has the experience to be able to make the connection with the political community that, once again, is another unique opportunity with the new administration coming in. So we've been doing our preparation now, all of us, for since 2001. It's taken us all this time to put all this information together, and there's literally been hundreds, thousands of people that have made contributions. So we are very privileged to be in a position to be able to represent that information, hopefully, to a political administration that is willing to listen and has the will to act upon the information in a meaningful way. So we're very grateful to be a part of this movement, and we want to make every effort to give everyone credit that has contributed to it unselfishly over the years, given their own time, their own money, their life energy into this movement. And finally, we've reached, I think, a tilting point, and we've got people in place to maybe make this happen. So I see Raul's here, and Raul, thank you for everything that you've done and the role that you're playing. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that we're so grateful to you.
Well, thanks. We got a little ahead of the game, Gene. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let me go back and
I didn't establish the connection between you and Curt, actually. So
Right,
that's
yeah,
where you want to go, then go ahead.
that's really, yeah, we need to go there first.
Yeah.
So, and you made it sound like I was really cooperative in doing all this stuff. I was not. I was very hesitant. I was very hesitant to do all of it. And it was really all you people, your commitment and tenacity to uncovering the truth, that I felt obligated to go to Orlando. I felt like I couldn't leave you guys hanging. So we did our presentation, and it was very well done with Paul Cayley and Richard Gage. And so we did meet the editor, Duncan White from the International Fire and Safety Journal, who said this information was really important. And if I wrote something up, that he would publish it complete without censoring, not necessarily editing, but he really didn't edit it. And yeah, it turned out to be like an 8,000 thesis, but they printed it and we just kind of went and said, okay, well, let's see what happens from here. So I get a call from Curt Weldon, Congressman Curt Weldon. And when I first got the call, I didn't even believe it was him. Why would a congressman be calling on me? I thought it was a fireman joke, and I hung up on the guy because I wasn't going to be taken, on that gag. I found an email from another fireman that I know, and he said, Congressman Weldon's trying to get in touch with you. He read your 9/11 article, and he needs to talk to you like right away. So I called him up, and what? He goes, yeah, dude, you need to call him like now. So I did, and we spoke, and a lot of what he told me, I'll give Andy a chance to recap that here in a minute. But what he wants to do is he wants to bring together a new presidential task force to investigate all the events of September 11th, especially focusing on, and which I'll let Andy speak to that. He has a lot of political and intelligence information that also falls under the banner of able danger, which I did not know about when he was explaining it to me, but many of you know. And he wanted to bring this information forward. He's obviously passionate and believes that through the mismanagement of information between the government agencies and the law enforcement agencies, we weren't able to identify the Manhattan cells that existed in New York. And he really feels that we could have prevented the events of 9/11. And with 4 years of open borders, and we don't know who's in the country, and he's definitely concerned that we can have another event happen to the magnitude of September 11th. And so this is information that he wants to bring forward to the incoming administration. Now, he was a congressman for 22 years out of Pennsylvania, and he was a Republican. He was friends with Biden. He said to me that they went to the Biden administration to push this forward, but they didn't act on it. And then he went to his friends in the upcoming administration, and we all know what happened in this election. So he has a trifecta support that they're very interested in bringing a lot of this information forward to the American people. You heard in that little clip that he thought the 9/11 Commission was a farce. He wants to produce a real document that exposes all the truth, the intelligence information, the military information, but he needed specifics from the building engineers and the firefighter perspective, and specifically with Building 7. So he asked if I would assemble a group of people, of subject experts, to give him the relevant information that he needs to go forward. He hasn't met with President Trump, but he did with J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard, and they're all very interested in pursuing this. So, but he needs to bring together a short, concise, but thorough document, a teaser, as he calls it, so that they will establish a presidential commission outside of Congress. No congressmen, no senators, no organizations like NFPA. Doesn't want anything to do with the NFPA. No bureaucrats, no lobbyists. He doesn't want anybody who can interfere or obstruct this information from coming forward. He says, with 22 years of experience in Congress, he knows how this works, and he wants this to be non-politically driven under the umbrella and protection of the president, that we would have the authority to bring forward all this information. So there you have it. And so in assembling my team, immediately I called Eric Lawyer. Eric, I hope you're here.
Yep.
And Paul Cayley, I saw that Paul's here. I called those two guys first and sent them this news. And then we needed the building engineers. And So we contacted Roland, Kamal, and Andrew. But the key guy to bring forward this information for me was specifically Professor Leroy Halsey, who I hope he's here. He should be here. And David Chandler. These are like two of the smartest guys I've ever met. And the reason why is because we need to be able to bring forward information that is provable by science and physics. So we have to keep it narrow to that scope. I know there's a lot of all other alternative theories and views out there, but we have to go forward with what we can prove and condense that information, not dump the whole thing. I can't give them the University of Alaska Fairbanks report. I have to give them the snippets so that they would come and say, okay, yeah, this needs to be checked on. And at some point in the future, there would be a presidential task force that would be assembled with key people. We're not at that point yet. All we're doing is bringing forward our little segment of information that Congressman Weldon is going to take forward. Now, he was a congressman before September 11th, during September 11th, and after September 11th, I think through 2016. So he knows all the players. And so here we are. In doing that, it has opened a lot of other doors, and it's opened up a lot of conversation with the help of Andy Steele to do this podcast with Weldon. And that's where we're at now. Now, Weldon, and I'll let Andy speak of this, he's already now on a public platform letting everyone know what he's planning on doing. And so now it's time to bring the group in, all of you listening to us, to what's going forward. All we're doing is assembling the information, and I broke it up into 5 categories to try and keep it simple. Where's my camera? So number 1, I call them lanes, but columns, lanes. Number 1 is going to be the information that is contradictory to the narrative regarding World Trade Center 7. We're not prohibited from talking about Tower 1 and 2, but if you bring forward the science and physics in 7, it implicates Tower 1 and 2. It's going to lead to Tower 1 and 2 in a future date. But so in that first lane, and this is where Professor Leroy Halsey comes in and David Chandler comes in, I think 2 of the main factors that we need to bring in are the executive summary from the Alaska report saying that this building wasn't brought down by fire, and that the only way you can have this type of collapse that simulates the video, which is our primary visual evidence, is to remove all the interior and exterior columns on a horizontal plane, remove them simultaneously to get that type of collapse. David Chandler's contribution to this is very important because I think that we all you look at Tower 1 and Tower 2 and Building 7. In the fire service, we define certain types of collapses: lean-to collapse, partial collapse, pancake collapse. If I say pancake collapse, we all know what that means, but it's really a misnomer because you have to have a driving force. You have to have a pile driving force that will continue to push against the resistance all the way to the bottom. And David Chandler did an excellent job, at least for me to understand, by using the graphic of hammering a nail in a block of wood that required constant applied pressure versus hammering a nail through a block of styrofoam, which you can handle in one swing. Yes.
It's just interrupt for 1 second. For those that know, it's 5:20 p.m. This is the time when World Trade Center 7 fell that day. Every day we lead just a positive vibe for 9/11 justice, and I'm Christian. At least I try to be. Sometimes I'm not so good, and some of you know that. But just want to take a short time for a positive vibe. I'm just going to say a prayer. It's relatively painless, just a few seconds. So just bear with us for a second.
And if you're not Christian, you just do your own thing.
Yeah, do your own thing if you're not Christian. Lord, I just come to you right now. I thank you so much for all these heroes of the 9/11 truth movement, that we've been persevering in this. We have the battle scars from it. We might have differences of opinion on things, but ultimately this thing is bigger than us, and we see this as an opportunity. We just ask that you would bless it, protect us, and guide us and give us wisdom as we continue in this part. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right. So that's the first lane, and that's going to present the contradictory information to the official narrative. The second lane is going to be the structural engineers and any other forensics or physical arguments that need to be made. And so in that column is going to be Roland, again, Professor Halsey, Kamal, and Andy Steele. And they overlap with the first one, but they're in that second lane. The third lane is going to be a firefighter lane, and that's going to be with Paul, Eric, myself, and who's the other captain? I'm drawing a blank right now. Tony, yes, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins. Now, Tony's input on that is important because he's also a commercial pilot. And one of the stories that struck me was that he tried to, in his classes, have his students fly the planes using that flight path that the terrorists supposedly took and hit their targets on the first shot. And Tony couldn't do it, and neither could his students, to hit Tower 1 and 2 on the first try. So that brings another component. In the firefighter component, we're also going to talk about the water issues, the fire issues, the temperatures, everything that we all know about. And we also need to bring the Barry Jennings information forward on that. And there was another development that we'll talk about a little bit later regarding the Deputy Commissioner, Richie Rotans. We'll get to that later, but all that's going to come under the firefighter lane, okay? Then the fourth lane is going to be all the information that has to deal with explosives, detonations, the nanothermite residue, all the evidence in that. And Richard Gage is going to lead the charge on that, compiling that information. And Richard is also working with Mick, the lawyer, I don't know his last name right now. That final lane is going to bring any of the legal issues or the money issues that need to be discussed. But basically, that covers the entire argument using my article like a template, but we're really standing on the foundation of the University of Alaska report by Professor Halsey. So we're assembling this information. I want to compile a 2-page bulleted, easy to read document for Congressman Weldon to take forward to the executive incoming administration, which is President Trump. If they agree at that point, they would have to establish a presidential task force, and then people would be selected, and wherever it goes, who knows from there. But our job and where we're at today is to bring forward everything we have been talking about on Building 7 and take it to the highest level we can. We've taken incremental steps by going to conferences, doing podcasts, writing articles, and whoever reads it, who knows. But this article caught the attention of a political player who's going to push this up to the highest level we possibly can. We can't get any higher than President Trump. And all the information is encompassed in Calling Out Bravo 7, which Weldon did watch, and he'll talk about that. But all the issues we've been working for have come to fruition. And so this is exciting. I don't know how much further after we present it to the executive branch of this current administration, which is very favorable to Weldon. He says he has their ear. We can only trust him. We don't know, but we can only trust him. But he certainly has access that we don't have or could possibly never get. So to spend time talking to NFPA and let's examine this and that, we're way beyond that. We're basically bringing forth all the information that was contradictory, omitted, neglected, or deliberately buried, and bringing it forward for the American people to produce a document that says, here's what really happened based on the science and physics. And that's our team. And there's a few others, but those are the main guys. And we couldn't do it. There's a lot of people that have helped. I like to say that, a big door swings on small hinges. And there's many of you out there who have contributed to this information. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And I think at this point, it would be good to Well, let me just say one more thing. Congressman Weldon told me to get in touch with Frank Ritchie. Frank Ritchie is a lieutenant, a fire guy. He's on the top tier of the fire service, and they were going to do this podcast, and they had some technical difficulties where it didn't go through. After I did my conversations with Andy, Andy asked if I ever thought we could get Weldon on free fall. And I said, I think we can now. And I contacted Weldon and said, would you like to speak to the engineers? It's important too that you meet the team. And so Andy was able to make that happen. So Andy, are you on?
Look for the mute. There you are.
Yes, I am here.
Yeah, Andy, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. And I'm going to lateral it to you right now to give some of your perspective.
Okay, well, thanks, Raul. I don't really know what I have to add because Raul's done a pretty good job of summarizing it along with Roland here. And you guys kind of know the struggles that we've all been through for a very long time. I've been doing this since 2007 or 8. So when Kamal called me and said, good news, we're getting a new investigation, just very blasé about it, I had to do a double take because it's like something that, you only hear about in a dream or something like that. And I'm still kind of in a state of shock over this. So, we don't have this yet, obviously. There's still a lot of work to be done, and that's going to be sort of my role, is just helping the engineers here get the work done, get everything kind of summarized. We've submitted our stuff to Raul, and that's being put together at the moment. And as I said on my show, we've got a lot of supporters, very dedicated people, dedicated to an issue for an incident that happened like 23, 24 years ago now. I think even the JFK thing lost some steam after a little while, but our people are very, very dedicated to getting justice for those people that died. And I mean, why shouldn't they be? And people did nothing other than get up in the morning and go to work, and they were killed. And they're not here anymore. Bobby McIlvaine, he wanted to be a writer, Bob said. Think about what kind of books he could have written. Probably had a lot of great ideas and things like that. That's just one example out of 3,000. So we owe it to them. We owe it to them to continue this. And so I tell the supporters on the show, stick with us just a little longer. It's going to be a lot of hard work, and a lot of people are going to have to put aside old problems and all of that and do whatever it takes to get us to the finish line. I still believe that if we have a new investigation of what happened at the towers, it's going to change everything in this country. They can't get away with calling us a bunch of kooks for 20 years, 24 years. And, then all of a sudden admit that we're right, and without having egg on their face, the whole system would. And as a result of that, the system has to change. A lot of things have to change. Things that we've been trying to get changed through our legislation, the Scientific Integrity Act. I mean, the courts have said that the government reports don't have to be scientifically accurate. That doesn't even make sense on its face. But they have the moxie to say these kinds of things now because they've gotten away with 9/11 for so long. So what we're doing is very important. A lot of times you don't see the results of your work. Sometimes you can, do some kind of action, and it may have an effect, but it can have an effect on somebody on the other side of the country. You don't know who you woke up in doing that. I woke up because somebody just randomly posted a 9/11 video on some kind of video platform in 06 or something. So all I can really add to this from what on top of what you heard from Raul and from Roland is just congratulations to everybody for all of the great work. And no matter what happens with it, it's completely worth it because this is the best opportunity that we have had in a long time. And we've got a very unique opportunity with this president. Whether or not you agree with him on this or that policy, I don't even care about those policies. I basically saw a guy who was burned by the deep state, as so many people have said, and I want to see what he was going to do with another 4 years and not having to worry about re-election. Just had a feeling, and I knew we weren't going to get this with the other person. And that's why we have this opportunity now. That's why we have this hope that we could possibly make something of that. So going to be a lot of hard work for people. I'm going to be trying to get Congressman Weldon onto some shows that we've gotten people on before. I'm going to be writing to Jimmy Dore's people tomorrow. We've got an article coming out from Craig that's going to go into more detail about this. going to send that to them. We're going to try to get Weldon on there along with an engineer possibly. So when we know more about that, we'll tell people. But a lot of work. And basically, if you've got any contacts in the media, share the story with them in whatever form you want, but
Yeah.
get it out there because we got to be in the media. Media doesn't help us.
Yeah,
Andy,
I sorry, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Is it safe to say that it's going to have to take all of us to come a little bit out of our comfort zone? Because when I listened to the interview that you published just last night, it sounded like Curt Weldon. He's, he doesn't take no for an answer, and he's gone out on a limb when he gave the example with pulling in the 350 fire trucks around the arena, and he's not afraid to really push the limits. And it sounded like he was saying, guys, it's all fine and dandy that you've been trying to address Congress and whatnot, and it's not enough. If you think they're just gonna, respond to you out of the kindness of their heart, it's not gonna happen, right? So it sounded like he was saying, we're all gonna have to step to the plate and do things maybe differently, maybe new, maybe, like I said, out of our comfort zone. I don't know what it's gonna look like, obviously. But did you get that feeling too, that it's going to require for all of us to roll up our sleeves and just go that extra mile?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be politely assertive. We did that on C-SPAN, and I was accused by a friend of mine. He's like, "You make everything so awkward. Well, awkwardness is my superpower." You ask them a very focused question, and they can't answer it. And when we did that, I mean, I cared what the congressman thought, and if they gave us a positive answer, we would use it, right? But I cared more what the audience thought. That's the real target. People are watching this, and the people at home are realizing, why won't they just answer these simple questions? So we can do things like that. It's actually very easy if you just kind of script it out ahead of time. You want to be legal and lawful and all of that, but it goes back to like when Trump was running for office, and a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't like his decorum. I don't like the way he talked to the other candidates." And I'm not like all excited about any particular politician or anything like that. But I was like, I kind of understand that because most of these politicians are surrounded by this spongy membrane of polite chit chat and emails. And, I've been to their speeches, and you can try to go hand them beyond misinformation. And there's always some staffer to jump in the way and say, "Oh, let me just take that for you here." And it's going to end up in the trash like in 5 minutes after you walk away. So you got to find whatever way you can do that without giving them an excuse to write you off. If you go in acting bombastic, crazy like that, and they can use that excuse, then they can dismiss you and, just not listen to what you have to say. But if you ask a very focused question and you don't let yourself get pushed around, they can't handle that. They don't know what to do with that. So that's what I encourage people to do. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody has not seen Andy's C-SPAN with John McCain, that was priceless. That's a classic. Everybody should see that clip.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that on C-SPAN, that particular, well, you got Richard Gage to be interviewed on C-SPAN also, which was tremendous at the time. I think it was 2014, and that clip, when C-SPAN only has normally a couple of hundred views for each episode, that one has topped the million now. So that was a tremendous achievement on your part.
Just add too, if you watch those videos, it backs up what Weldon said during the interview about the cognitive abilities of some of these people out there. I mean, there are interactions where you can just tell that these people don't even really have a good grasp of the issues. They're getting talking points. They know how to sound good. I do a podcast. I know how you can just kind of keep on talking and, sound, fill the dead air and all of that, but that's all they're doing. They don't have a grasp of things like September 11th or the nuances of the building collapses. That's what Weldon says. And I've seen this myself. And that's why we focused on Congress for so long, because it's the most reachable branch of government for the average citizen. I mean, who can get a meeting with Donald Trump or whoever the president is? Hardly nobody, right? But now this opportunity is coming along, and it's Donald Trump, whether you like him or hate him, the guy speaks his mind. And so if he was convinced that 9/11 was an inside job or controlled demolition, I don't think he'd be afraid to open this up. So
One of the
veterans can-
things, what's that?
Go ahead.
One of the things that's really important to bring up was that when I was talking to Congressman Weldon and he wanted me to bring on the engineers, I told him ahead of time and I said, hey, you know, they're going to bring up the issue of demolitions, dynamite, explosives being used, and nanothermite. And so he's aware of it. And he did say, I don't want to quote him here, but it's paraphrasing, you know, he does recognize that this was a deliberate event for 7, that it wasn't just a series of progressive collapse, as Dr. Shazam would say, due to fire. So we're going there, and we're not going to leave any question on the table. So those things are going to get it. I want to reassure everyone that they're going to be addressed. And
I got-
go ahead.
I got that clip here right now where he recognized building 7. This is a roundtable discussion too, so I do. If anybody has any questions or want to converse and talk things through, please do. Let me just show you this
David
clip.
raise his hand.
I'll go to you, Madhava, in 1 second.
Put on the intelligence side without any hesitation. And after watching the film and being a firefighter and seeing Building 7 collapse the way that I saw, it just looked like a prearranged demolition to me, as opposed to a fire. I didn't see any fire at all in Building 7. And I know people that were in that building. At the time, the officers were in that building, but were not in there when the actual building came down. So I think the key thing is, how do you get what you know and what you have to be impacted? And I'll help you do that. I'll help you get the attention of the Congress individually. I'll tell you, in Alaska, Senator Murkowski is critical. And by the way, she's a co-chair of the Fire Caucus right now. And we should have a private meeting with her and discuss this. Now, the problem you have with politicians is when you get into this area, you're taking on the system. There are forces that don't want this to be looked at for a multitude of reasons. I don't want to hurt our country. I'm a loyal, patriotic American, the youngest of 9 kids.
So are all of
8
we.
brothers and sisters that served in every branch of the military. I'm a very patriotic American. But I will not stand for anonymous scumbags to do things that harm our people and get away with it.
Right on.
That's powerful. It's powerful.
Mhm.
Hey, is Eric Lawyer? Are you here?
He was here, definitely.
Yes, Raul.
Eric, so I'd like you to bring up this point right now because Weldon has said on occasion in our conversations, I have not had a chance to watch the interview yet with 9/11 Freefall, but he has said before that the sleeping giant is the American Fire Service. And you have always said this information is going to come through from firefighters. Can you comment on that?
Just want to
Yeah.
let Madhava, David, Ted, Craig, we're coming to you next. Go ahead. Eric, good to see you, brother.
Too. Thank you, brother. Yeah, when I first got into this, and I just want to thank everybody. Like this, I keep telling my wife and my son, like they're listening, and it's just this is a moment in history that just, whether it goes through the president or not, I just want to say the coming together in this way is massive, and it's healing relationships, and we're on a mission together. And like what you said, Raul, earlier to me today, is they're learning the firefighter way. Like we put our differences aside because we've got a bigger mission. So when I first stepped into 9/11 Truth, thanks to Richard Gage and a lot of other things, I was connected immediately to an intelligence officer, a military intelligence officer who a colonel and a military intelligence, and they helped. They were there to protect me, you could say. They said it. Both of them said it. They reached out to me, and I was confused. Like, how do you even know? How do you even know who I am in a way? And what I'll just say it shortly is what the intelligence officer said is you don't understand. He said firefighters are the most trusted occupation on this planet worldwide. There's almost no other industry that's that trusted. And he said they're also the ones that were the most hurt on 9/11. They were devastated. So he said he used the same words that Weldon used. It's the sleeping giant. The fire service is where the truth based, no, not the truth, where his essence was the people are going to listen to firefighters. And it's not going to be they're the experts, they're this, but they're going to discern the information and help it come through. In my job, he's you could say a very spiritual man. My job is to help protect that. So he said, we have to protect this source of information. And there's going to come a time where the world's going to look to the firefighters to what do we do with these people. And I am going to plant this seed here on this call, because this has been my path the last many years now, is so many people want, people to be, I'd say hung, from a tree and imprisoned and all these things. And I'm not saying what to do, but what I am saying is what he said to me. He said, there's going to come a moment when people now wake up, and the firefighters will be the ones that have helped them wake up. And they're going to say, what do we do with these people? And he goes, I want you to realize something. He goes, in that moment, that's when we can change humanity. Because if we go off with their heads, down with them all, and all that, we're missing the entire point. We all contributed to this mess in a way. And when we go after people and blame them and not look here, then we're saying they're the ones who have to change. Well, we can't change them, so we'll kill them or we'll arrest them. We'll do all these things. But really what this is an invitation to do is go here and heal our own relationships. And that's what this call to me is doing. It's like, this is the catalyst for something unbelievable. And so when you called me, Raul, and you told me what Weldon had said, and I listened, I was on that call with him the next, or however many days later, I was like, he's saying all the things the guy said now 16, 17 years ago. And I'm like, so to me, this is destiny. Like, we've all been in this movement for a long time, and the ones that are here, they put in the time, the energy, and the sacrifice. And now it's our time to rise together as one. And there's no other way to say it than my heart's just exploding. Like, this is beyond us, and here we go together.
It came a long way from when Raul called you a wackadoodle. Come on.
Yep, wackadoodle. Hey, Gene, before you go to calls, before you take some of these calls, let me just add a few more things, because I don't want to forget, and it's tying into what we're saying right now.
Mhm.
Okay, so Weldon does, if you look back at where we were even a year ago, a key person to get on board was Glenn Corbett. Glenn Corbett is the author of Building Construction for the Fire Service, and I needed him on board. We're very good friends, but it was incremental. And I finally told him that I wrote this article, and he said, that's good. It was good that we did this. When I told him about Weldon and this whole deal, well, he's on board now. So Glenn Corbett is with us. He's still, he's not taking the front row seat, but he's there with us and urging us to go forward. So that's really key. Yeah, there's Glenny right there.
Some of you might know this is Sally Regenhart in front, and Monica Gabrielle with Glenn Corbett.
Now here's another thing I need to do before we go to questions, because this will help people bring them up to speed. So Eric Schlett is the executive editor of Fire Engineering. That's the number one publication in the United States for firefighters. Our number one trade magazine. It's like 130 years old. So they also own the Fire Department Instructors Conference. That's the largest national conference in North America. And so Weldon says, I need you to call Eric Schlett and tell him I need him on board. It's like, he knows Eric Schlett. I mean, I know Eric Schlett. I can call Eric right now, but he goes, yeah, I know Eric really well, so call him. And so I did. And Eric was already aware. Weldon had already contacted him. And he says, if anything's urgent, talk to Dave Rhodes. Well, Dave Rhodes is the editor of Fire Engineering. So these two guys, which are basically the mouthpiece of the American Fire Service, are already paying attention to what's going on here with Weldon. Here we were trying to figure out how to get a booth at FDIC. Maybe we can do a class. Weldon's already got them tied in. So I spoke with Eric. This is the man for the American Fire Service. And he's taking it slow because, politicians are politicians and they'll promise you the world. So he's taking a wait and see. But if anything is substantial or starts getting traction, he's more than willing to bring all this to the forefront to the American Fire Service. So we've already crossed that bridge. I mean, we have access to the two editors that can voice any of this to the American Fire Service. That is huge. We've bypassed everybody, and these guys are already aware of what's going on. Okay, so that being said, I don't know, and I want Roland to speak on this. Roland calls me up, and we're going to talk about Richie Roitans just for a little bit because it's very key.
Nice.
He asked if I would go on with Richard Roitans. I said, sure. There was a couple of people Roland wanted me to speak to that were engineers. And so it's like, I'll speak to anybody. But we ended up having this conversation with Richie Roitans. Now, this conversation, he actually did one before. What's the name of that program there, Gene?
It was called The Darkened Hour.
With
The
Adam
Darkened Hour. He
Fitzgerald,
did it about a year ago. And Gene will have a link to that so that everybody can go and watch that. It's virtually the identical conversation that we had with him. But my point is this, is that if everybody remembers from my article, well, excuse me, I'd like to ask Roland first, how did you even find this guy? And why did you want to call him? And I can't even believe he said yes. Roland?
Yeah, well, we have been compiling a list of what we call persons of interest that are in any way connected with the investigations. So Roitans had been on the video. He went into the building that morning, later that day after the towers came down, and there's a video of him describing what he's seeing. It's dark and you can't see what he's talking about. He's describing what he's seeing. And he was an official that was he was the deputy director, I believe, of the emergency office there in Building 7. So he describes what he sees, and he says, the building's suffering from tremendous damage, which he described as happening from the collapse of the North Tower. And then he apparently, we didn't know this until we talked to him, but he was the one that gave the order to abandon the building because he thought it was going to come down due to damage. So he was just one of the people that when I looked at the list of persons of interest, I thought, well, this guy was there that day. He has connections with the fire department, and he was working with the Office of Emergency Management. He's a person that I'd really be interested in seeing what he has to say. So that's why I picked him as being one of the first persons that I've tried others with no success, but as soon as I contacted him, he got right back to me within a half an hour, and he wanted to talk. He had lots of things to say, so I figured this guy has information that could be very helpful to us. So that's why we went after him.
Okay, so this is what's really important, and he was very candid, very patient. I mean, he talked for over an hour and a half with us, and never lost his cool. He was very accessible. But the point I want to make is that one of the questions that I asked at the end of my article was like, who gave this order to not fight fire in Building 7? This is type 1 construction. It should be able to endure this fire load, and firefighters know that. Whoever gave the order, it wasn't coming from firefighters. And that's how my article ends. Okay, well, he actually answered the question. It was him, Deputy Chief Roush, which apparently was in charge of 7, and another battalion chief who he couldn't remember the name and has now since passed. But my point being is that question got answered. And so there's other questions and there's follow-ups that need to still happen, and we're working on that.
I actually have that clip if you want to hear it real quick. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And I will get to Madava and everybody.
Yeah, we really have to.
Sorry.
Yeah, we just need to get this part out, and then we can take some questions.
Yeah.
Yep. Here we go. It's just a short clip.
Yeah, what happened was Pete Hayden, God bless this guy, I love him crazy. He asked me to go with Chief Roush, Deputy Chief Roush, and another battalion chief, but I can't remember his name. I think he passed away. He said, look, guys, to be fair, just take a look, see if it's worth putting these guys back to work in Tower 7. And I was like a little shocked, like, okay. As you went around in front of the building, you looked up, there was massive holes that you could drive a tractor trailer standing on its hind wheels going through the building. Massive
in World Trade Center 7.
7, up parts of 40th and 30th floors. Just a lot of destruction. So the three of us went into the building. We walked up the stairs, and what got me in the third floor was, the open third floor was just the buoyancy, negative buoyancy, just dust standing right there in the middle of in the air. It wasn't moving up or down. It was just it was there. It was very stagnant, very eerie. We got up to the 8th floor and worked our way down the hallway, and what we saw was somewhat bizarre. Was a an elevator car down the hallway, not in the shaft, down the hallway, and it was like 5 or 6 floors above it with no floors. Our main concern was let's bang into the elevator, see if we get in there to make sure no one's in there, but there wasn't anybody in there. And we looked at each other and said, time to exit stage right. We're out of here. Because you could hear the fire on the upper floors. You could hear the building creaking. And we came downstairs, we're out of here. And we told Chief Hayden, this is coming down. And it did about 7 hours later on.
Yes, it did. Actually, there was you actually gave testimony in a civil case of Aegis Incorporated versus World Trade Center 7.
Okay, basically just going to repeat about the elevator shaft, but he was the one that gave the order.
Right. And so there's a lot of follow-up questions that we need to have with Roytons, and we will, and that information will be brought forward at a later date, but it certainly is going to be part of some of the stuff that we submit to Congressman Weldon, but we need to verify it. But the point I'm making is that he was willing to talk to us. Now, here's the other amazing deal at the end of that conversation was after speaking to Roland, Andy, and myself and Kamal, he said, well, how would you like to talk to Pete Hayden? It's like Pete Hayden is the commander after the collapse. Chief Gansey's chief of department, but he died. And Hayden ends up being the guy picking up the pieces and being the commander. He's saying, I'm a good friend of Pete's. I think he would talk to you, yada, yada, yada. Okay, these guys are like 79, 80 years old. My friend Nick Visconti, Chief Visconti, who was also there, he was 81 and he recently passed away. I'm thinking, and I wait, this is why the podcast with Andy and the engineers was so important. Because if Weldon tipped his hand, which he did, saying, here's what I'm planning on doing. Now it's on a public venue, public forum. Now I want to go back to Roytans and say, you know what? It's really important that you talk to us one more time because Weldon's going forward with this information. Roytans doesn't know that yet, unless he's watching now, he doesn't know. And so I'm going to approach him. And I'm also going to say that it is really important that if you could talk to Chief Hayden again, we would like to talk to him because Hayden's name is going to be brought up in this presentation or in further discussions with the Trump staffers because of calling out Bravo 7. Weldon's really hot on that documentary, and Hayden's a part of that. So I would think Hayden, being in his 80s, I mean, how much longer are you really going to live? Do you want anything to say? You've had 25 years to reflect on this. If there's any time to come to a safe audience, firefighters, me being the point of that group, now's the time to bring forward anything that you want uncovered, released, investigated. And I think that they would do that. I really think that they would do that. Everything that we know, think about this, everything that we know from Pfeiffer, Danny Nigro, and Hayden, it's all on mainstream media. You're talking to CBS 60 Minutes. I don't know if you ever talk to the press, but no one likes to talk to the press. They twist it, they'll edit it, they'll make you look like a fool. They'll design the story after your interview. They'll say they played 20 seconds out of a 30-minute interview. It seems natural that Hayden and Pfeiffer and these guys would be very cautious on what they're saying to CBS News. But if they speak to us, and this information is going straight to the president admin without the interference of any other politicals, I would think that being 80, 81, 82 years old, if you want stuff to be rechecked, I think he would want to do it. And I'm going to present that to Roytans because Weldon is going forward. So that's what I really think is going to be a key component here. So, and one last thing, and then we'll go to questions. Is Mick here?
Yep.
Mick. So I just met him yesterday by phone, and Mick said that he would take like depositions. Mick, if you can just say how you said it yesterday to me, but it would be a way to protect this information without them going on camera or being taped, but they would have the opportunity to go forward on that. But I really think that because of the recent podcast with Weldon and Andy, now is the time to approach these guys. Mick?
Okay, thanks, Raul. You've got a couple options here. When I say you, I mean the group and the congressman and the president. you want to preserve the testimony of these key witnesses that rule is describing, those particularly who are older. We have a method of doing that in the legal profession, and the law recognizes that sometimes, because of a witness's age or their health or some other circumstance, that there's a justification for preserving their testimony to make sure it isn't lost. And the typical way of doing that is to conduct depositions under oath with a court reporter. You can do it privately without any approval of a court. You can also file a motion with the court to do it to preserve evidence. Congress can do it through an investigative committee doing investigative depositions or interviews under oath. The president can probably do it through an agency by executive order. So I'm happy to help with whatever procedure folks choose to follow, and happy to volunteer my services at no charge to try to get those depositions preserved if you decide to go that way.
Well, that's it in a nutshell. That's where we're at, and I think we can go forward with this. We've made tremendous amount of progress, and that's kind of everyone's up to speed now. So we can take questions.
Right on. Let's go to Madhava.
Yeah, thank you, Gene. Thank you, Raul, and thank you, everyone here. I'm just going to dispense with saying how exciting this is for me. But I wanted to add one thing, which was, Raul, when you were going through your bullet list of the summary, I think it's excellent, starting with the physics, the engineering, the evidence. And I just want to suggest that you also, along these same lines, include the oral testimonies from the firefighters, because obviously, it's only the scientists and engineers that understand how conclusive the evidence is. When you go to, the White House and DC, you have politicians that don't really understand. However, it is going to be a strategic blunder for them to ignore the oral testimony from heroes who are there. That's kind of the thing that irons it home for them. It's like, this is real. All these things that the engineers and brilliant engineers that are here and how they've summarized the evidence is excellent, but it doesn't carry the same gravitas for a non-engineer. But when they hear a firefighter saying, look, we heard explosions, and that's going to be, I think, something to add in. That was my only suggestion.
That is going to be included. It's going to come under Richard's lane and mix. It's going to come under that legal lane, as I call it, or legal column, but we are going to include that.
Great.
Or at least the bullets saying, here are the testimonies. They may not have them all, but we have them here, and we're bringing it forward. So the congressman can say, look, we have 125 testimonies from firefighters, but we are including that in the presentation. Yes.
Yeah. And just to say, with the document that you're submitting, you said has to fit into 2 pages.
Well, we just would put the bullet that
exactly.
These testimonies are here and available upon request, or when the task force is submitted. But yeah, we're not leaving that out. Just like we're not leaving the Barry Jennings issue out. The Barry Jennings interview, and the time relation to what Rotans was saying and what Barry Jennings was saying, that's coming under the firefighter lane. So that is going to be brought out too.
Excellent, David. Good to see you.
I'm muted. Okay. One of the things, I listened to the interview on 9/11 freefall for this, and one of the things that I hear a lot from various people that aren't actually part of the movement is they're taking things like, we could have prevented 9/11 had we had better intercommunications and all these kind of things, as though preventing the terrorists from accomplishing their task and so forth. And what our work has basically shown is that the real underlying mechanism is the pre-planted explosives. It's there's somebody at a deeper level that's going at it, and that the terrorists, the terrorists in the planes or whatever are it's almost like Oswald. You couldn't have prevented the JFK assassination by putting a leash on Oswald, And so I think it's important to get to the implication. If you have demolitions, you have foreknowledge, and you have somebody who's doing things behind the scenes at a deeper level. I just think it's important to get to that level of understanding. out of all of this somehow.
I agree with you, and but that's Weldon's passion. You can tell, Andy. You can comment on that. We're not going to be able to convince him that that's not the main issue. He believes that's one of his main issues, was that it could have been prevented, and that's okay because he's running point and clearing the lane for us to come in and bring in exactly what you're saying.
Well, the terrorists, the Arabs on the plains and things like that are relevant to the operation, but in the same way that Oswald was relevant to the JFK Act. I just think we need to draw that analogy perhaps somehow. Okay.
Yep. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Hope you feel
Thank
better.
you, David.
Let's go to Ted, I believe. Oh, where'd all my hands go? Yes, there we go.
Am I on now?
Yep, there you go.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for having this. Thank you, Raul, for all the work you've done. It's absolutely tremendous. This is obviously an incredible development, and thank you, everybody who's helping out here. I just want to make one quick comment. There is my sense in terms of what David said, is my sense is that Curt Weldon is probably putting the pieces together and realizing that there was much more going on here. That's clear, and that when he talks about it being prevented, maybe he is starting to see these terrorists or alleged hijackers as being patsies or whatever. And when he says, it could have been prevented, it could have been blocked in some level by apprehending them, and it wasn't. And like, they were clearly protected. But maybe he realizes that these guys were probably not the guys. They probably didn't do everything that they're said to have done. They probably didn't hijack the planes. So, but he's probably walking a fine line there in terms of how the language that he uses. I just want to make a simple suggestion that Howard Lutnick, Trump's appointee to be the Secretary of Commerce, is also somebody that to focus on, and I would try really hard to get an audience with him, if possible. I don't know if you have any insight on him, but he is the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. He was back on 9/11, and he lost his brother on 9/11, and so he is both a 9/11 family member, and he is probably going to be the Secretary of Commerce, which has oversight over NIST. And so I would just try to really, really work hard to make sure that he's an audience. And if you can get him, if you can get him educated, and who knows where he's at now, but if you can get him educated, obviously he's going to have even more determination to see that something is done with this than the average member of the Trump administration. And as soon as I heard that you got through to Glenn Corbett, and he is, as well as all these other leaders in the fire and safety world, that's incredible. Well done. I would try to get Sally Reagan-Hard on board. I don't know if any discussions have already been had with her, but bring the Nyland family member component back into this. Both Howard Lutnick, because of the position he's going to be in, but also Sally Reagan-Hard, and that would be an important force as well. So
I need you to email Gene with that information so we can get that to Congressman Weldon. I know that Curt Weldon, there's a podcast that Gene will link. That's that box. That's his podcast.
Box Call.
Weldon's, yeah, Box Call. That
Box
ends.
Box
That
Alarm,
ends with him talking to one of the family wives, the widows. So Weldon is connected, not with Sally's group, because there's a couple of widow groups, but Weldon is connected. And I'm sure he's going to bring those families in. But that Secretary of Commerce, the name, I don't know. That needs to get that information to Gene, and we'll forward that to Weldon to say, here's an ally coming in. That's a good point. Thank you.
Yep. Great. And if there is another lane going to form ever, Ted and IC has done a lot of work with the alleged hijackers. There's a lot of
the planes.
The planes, yes.
Planes, yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Ted. Real quick, let's see if I could do this. This is Curt Weldon's website. It's boxalarmpodcast.com. The second video he has up on YouTube is the one where he interviewed Anthony Schaefer about Able Danger. And if you haven't seen that, it is very good. So check that out. All right. Next in the list, Craig. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to ask Raul if you might be available to join we have a monthly 9/11 teleconference that we're actually, usually we do the last Wednesday of the month, but it's actually going to be January the 1st at 8 Eastern. And we'd love it if you could come and sort of tell people about what's going on with all this. Is that possible?
I can't commit to that right this second. And my video froze here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you
sure. Yeah.
Can you email Gene with that request and I'll get back to you? I don't want to overcommit right now, but
yeah,
it's a possibility.
That's fine.
Sure.
I just
Sure.
yeah, it's a Wednesday night, whatever. But okay. Now, couple of things. I did have a couple of things. I think the first thing I was going to raise actually has already been raised by David and mentioned by Ted too, which is that, listening to Weldon, it did sort of strike me that he is coming at this from the point of view of, we could have stopped this. And I just sort of wondered how we were going to handle that, but it sounds like that's already been sort of addressed. So, and I did want to say, and this goes into, I guess, my other question / concern is that, when I woke up to 9/11, it was many different things all kind of at the same time that kind of woke me up. And a lot of it had to do with reading David Ray Griffin's books, where he looks at virtually every aspect of 9/11 and just kind of point by point shows where all the impossibilities and the anomalies and everything are. And the towers and the science of the towers is like a kind of a cornerstone, no pun intended, but kind of it's the kind of the focus, I guess, or the main thing. But there's so much more, with the military exercises. I mean, there's just a massive amount of evidence that really points to insider involvement. And I just wonder if there's any way to, even if we don't sort of get into that initially, I would hate to sort of leave the impression that there isn't a vast amount of evidence beyond what this sort of introductory, bullet points are. So that is a question, and I also think about, I know there are issues in the movement where there is considerable disagreement. And if we're making a strategic decision that we're going to just focus on the towers, I think that's reasonable. That makes sense. That's where a lot of the expertise among the people here on this call, that's where their expertise is. I would just hate to think that we were leaving the impression, though, that there wasn't other evidence. And as most people on here know about me, that, the Pentagon is a major, part of the evidence I've studied. And I think it's pretty important because if there's any kind of shenanigans that went on at the Pentagon, that kind of really brings in government involvement and makes that clearer. So it's not that I'm suggesting that we have to focus on that. I'm just a little bit concerned about the idea that we would maybe leave the impression that there was nothing outside of Manhattan that was problematic in the official story.
No, I think you bring up some good
Yeah.
points, but we got to take incremental steps even at this level. I want to say this, that Weldon said he had the intelligence information, but what he needed, and the reason why he contacted me, was he did not have the structural engineer expertise or the firefighting expertise, and he needs that component, and that's why we've assembled this group. He actually watched Calling Out Bravo 7, which was excellent work by Paul, who's on the call here too. And Weldon took that and ran with it. He said he's been showing a lot of people that video, and you can tell his emotion was like a number 10 in the podcast, because he is being introduced to a lot of new information that he didn't know. So, but again, there's a lot to September 11th, and you can even talk about Shanksville, but we just have to stay focused on our role and what he's asking us to do and what we can prove through the physics and science. Is Leroy here? Because I want him to add something at this point. Leroy, Professor, are you here?
I'm here. He's
Okay.
here through
Professor-
my phone call.
I'm so glad he's here. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And really he's part of our team and we're standing on his shoulders. His document and his research is the foundation and gives us the tools and weapons, so to say, to challenge the official narrative. But everything that we've introduced to you are other side components that are important to investigate and research. But it still does not invalidate. In fact, it continues to validate the conclusions that Professor Halsey was saying. And Professor, if you could just talk a little bit on that.
I think that I should say, when I started the project, I spent about, I guess almost a week, and by the end of that week, just looking at the concepts of how SIRES would work and the stiffness of the building and what the configuration of that building looked like. And I looked at all from the bottom all the way to the top, both plan view and on each direction as well. So I was looking at the entire building, not just pieces of the building. So to put all that together mentally and just think about it, I knew within about a week that this was not thought to be. It was that quick. In spite of the fact Nick had said it was absolutely fine. So then it came from that point forward. Then I started breaking it down into the details to count.
Okay.
Understanding.
Please.
So the first thing that I bring out to everybody was that building was not rectangular. It was a trapezoidal building.
Is anyone hearing anything?
Yeah. It's really hard to hear him.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could move that. Yeah, there you
I
go.
can't hear him at all.
And if you're on speakerphone by any chance, it's better to speak directly into the phone.
Well, he's on a phone with Roland, so we're gonna put it near his mic, I think.
Oh, okay.
I do have a follow-up, just so that a little bit of a follow-up. So
here, let me
before you zip to the next person.
Try now. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's a little
Much better. Thank you.
Yeah. So what do I need to repeat?
The whole thing.
Well, we got the gist of, yeah.
I didn't.
No?
I didn't hear any of it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Start over, Leroy.
Start over. Okay. So initially, people from from the group that Roland's with initially contacted me. One of the people that was actually in Anchorage, Anchorage, Alaska, and said, "Would you do this?" And I turned it down. He asked again, and I turned it down. He asked me the third time, and I said, "Okay, I'm old enough to go away, and it's no big deal. So if they get rid of me, I'll go ahead and accept it." I then took this study on, and then I think I was a keynote speaker in the 15th year. So I was wanting to take a quick look at it and see if I could tell the people there, the engineers and architects there, about what it was, what I'd learned already. And that took about 1 week when I already determined that it was not a fire that brought that building down. So now, what was that based on? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if you can't, let me know. So at that point, I began to take a look at the centroid. The centroid is the stiffest it's the location of the point where if you were to put it on a pin, it would balance around that pin, on that pin. So that told me exactly where the centroid, or the weak centroid was at. Then I wanted to find out where the temperature centroid, in other words, the fire centroid was at, what I call thermal centroid, or thermal point. And that was at the elevator shaft. Now, with that being said, I took a look at what all this whole thing had to do with what it would need to take a look at to determine what was going on. And then I came to the conclusion maybe I'd better take a look at what NIST did. Oh my gosh. NIST
I don't understand how they could even have an engineering degree. So I then took a look, and the first thing is the external wall, they said, was very, very stiff, and everything was measured, horizontal movement of the floor system being very hot, and what moved and how it moved, and they had it moving away from that that exterior side of the building, which was, they said, was extremely stiff, and they pushed it over to move the floor system with respect to column 79. That was their spot, and they claimed that it moved the support system 2001, that girder over, and didn't have any support, and that started bringing the complex down. That's what they were saying. That did not happen that way. We got proof to show that it didn't happen that way, and there's a number of reasons why. I could take you there for the next couple hours to explain every detail. However, that's not the issue here. They made huge mistakes. I don't know what all people that helped them make those crazy decisions, but they did. So at the end of the day, we decided, okay, along the way, that let's go past this point. Let's determine how this building started coming down. And now I didn't explain about demolition. I didn't explain about any of that. I didn't want to approach it from a standpoint of possibility getting shall we say, anything dealing with the politics into the work that I was doing. I insisted every day, every morning, that to know what my students had. I had 2 PhD students working on this, and what I wanted them to know, I wanted them to know from their studies, scientifically, pure science, all the way, not anything they might read. So every morning I had them report to me what they knew, and I made sure that I had a science report and not a report that they might have been reading. And so that's the process we worked. I've had 2 students, 2 PhD students, one of them, each one of them working with a different program, and then we would have them. I would have them do those evaluations on a daily basis, whatever I was having them do, and compare the results. And through both computer programs and both models, I did it that way. Now initially, before we started, though, we put the entire building, based on all the plans that we had, into AutoCAD. And through that AutoCAD, then we broke AutoCAD down into having the computer models. So the computer models came out as a result of the actual building of the building, not just an imagination. We used the data that we actually used to build those buildings, that building rather. So with all that being said, now I looked at, I said, I asked a question now. How did this building come down? And I started taking a look, and started with what they call progressive collapse. It became pretty clear after several months of playing around trying to find out how progressive collapse was working, that it was not a progressive collapse. It wasn't possible. Everything that we were getting was showing that the building was tilting this way or tilting that way or whatever, with different fire directions and different situations. That it was not even possible to come down and have the thing coming down, which we've all seen pictures of, and coming straight down in slow footprint. Therefore, what kind of failure did it happen? Well, there's a lot of discussion about the penthouse, but the penthouse came down before the rest of the building started coming down, and you have to say, okay, wait a minute, how did that happen? Well, its support system was above anywhere there's ever been any reported fire. So now that's telling you something that didn't have anything to do with fire there as well. So now we have, okay, so what's going on here? And as I began to look at the system and looking at it from the bottom up, taking all the way to the 47th story, we began to identify that what was really truly happening was floors of 8 stories or more were coming down at once, all across the plan view of the building. Now that's telling you that you were losing the supporting system, vertical supporting system within that area, and so it was uniformly. So there wasn't any tilt. Now, if we did progressively using kind of like a fire thing, that part of the outside, the interior columns would go out, and then the exterior fold in and whatever, you would not get a failure that was coming down in its own footprint. It would tilt, and guess what? It's tilting because you have these. You have a trapezoidal force that's going to load more in one direction, right? More in one area than another. And so we played the progressive collapse for months, and finally gave up. There was not possible for this to occur. And this is all based on pure science, not based upon anything we read, not guessing on what other people were saying. We were isolating ourselves totally into that entire that building to make sure that we were examining it through a scientific approach. That's kind of a summation, snapshot of what I think went through. And then you will see in our report that we finalized it by saying it did not come down by fire. Now, I didn't say that it was coming down by any kind of blast or anything like that. But that is not to say it didn't. I'm saying it did not come down by fire, and I didn't want to get into the game of the explosives at that point in time because I felt it was going to be somewhat another pathway towards people's, shall we say, the politics side of the world. I want to stay away from that completely. It didn't feel like the report should be taken negative because we might have gone political. We did not. It was all science all the way. All can be supported by science. Anyway, so I hope I gave you kind of a snapshot of what I wanted to know. I will say that in September 2022, I was getting ready to go to bed, and I said, God, please, I'm a problem solver. I said, God, I'm not going to be alive in the morning. I can't help you anymore. I'm sorry. I got this loud voice saying, Leroy, I'm not done with you yet. I could not believe that I would get that thing. It kind of changed my life that day. That all of a sudden, I need to still do whatever I could do. It's kind of a snapshot of my conversation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
That was a voice from God, Leroy. So that's what's important. That's important for him what he said, because I want to address that gentleman who was talking about we needed to include the firefighter testimonies, and the other gentleman I didn't see who that was asking me to come on his program.
Craig.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's Craig.
Craig. So we need to stay under the cover of the professor's research. That's our protection. But that's going to lead, 7 is the falling domino that's going to open up all the other questions to Tower 1 and 2, the Pentagon, and everything else. It's all tied together. Right. But for our purpose, we have to stay under the protection of what we can prove scientifically and by physics. And that's why this is so important. Even David Chandler's explanation of acceleration and pancake and all that comes into play again at Tower 1, right? Because firefighters think, well, right, Tower 2 was hit at a lower level, so there's more weight up on top to cause that collapse. Well, no, because these buildings are designed, the columns are designed to support weights. I don't know how many times it's above how they're rated. I mean, that's all engineering talk, but we think it just pancakes and goes all the way down, and that's not how it happens. And so if we explain that with 7, and David's really good at doing that same theory, correct me if I'm wrong, David Chandler, that same theory of the acceleration and having that consistent force driving down also applies to Tower 1, and it can't happen that way.
Yeah. Can I just add? I agree with that, and I think you do have to sort of get your foot in the door, and then sort of work from there. I think it would be useful if it's at some point it just a reference is made to, and there's more, or there's a lot of, because there's a lot of things that can be proven that maybe aren't related to physics specifically, but might be related to a contradiction in what a government official said, or person said they were in the emergency operations center in the White House at a time when they couldn't have been, or whatever it might be. So I just sort of mentioned that there are many things that can be proven that are beyond physics, but I'm totally understand why we would kind of want to start somewhere.
Right. And if Weldon establishes that task force, trust me, there's not going to be any question left on the table. He wants a complete investigation. And he's just not saying Tower 7, 1 and 2. It will go to the Pentagon. It will go to Shanksville. It will go to all the other information that he has. And all this intelligence information he has, I have no idea what he's talking about. He hasn't shared any of that with us.
Yeah.
But I'd like to introduce
the last
Paul.
thing I'll throw in real quick. Sorry, Raul. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the last thing I'd throw in is when, I think we should be careful of language with, like, let's say if we refer to the hijackers, there's, I think most people in the truth movement don't believe that the planes were actually hijacked, although there's some, there's different ways of looking at that. But I would say that it's just safer to say, if we ever make reference to hijackers, that we say alleged or something like that, just so that we don't find ourselves inadvertently reinforcing parts of the official story, which I don't think is a helpful thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you very much for that. For that.
Point well taken. I'd like to bring Paul Cayley in on this. Paul, you there? Polly, did you fall asleep in England? Yeah. Hey, I'm glad you're with me. Paul is the man behind Calling Out Bravo 7. And I'd like him to chime in on some of the things that we have been speaking about.
Okay, so what specifically do you want me to talk about, really? Because it's
anything you want. I just wanted to give you some time for the team to meet you, for the other people to meet you who haven't had an opportunity to speak to you. I think, you know what? I think it would be really interesting to kind of go over what we were talking about today is in regards to pancake collapse and Tower 1 and 2.
I think that would be a really, really good subject here that the engineers talking about. But we were basically talking about as firefighters, we like to see things from a very practical and common sense point of view. And the pancake collapsing thing, basically, in a pancake collapse, you'd see a system failing, and you'd see loads of floors all stacked up on top of each other at the end of the pancake collapse, and you just didn't see that with Tower 1 and 2. You basically saw steel and dust. So that for me doesn't make any sense. What I would like to bring in is there's a number of British firefighters here on the call today, and something which you said was quite important in the past, Raoul, was that something which I consistently encountered after showing all of the
Paul cut out for a second. Give him a second. Hopefully he'll come back. Unless it's me.
No, I lost him too.
Paul, you might.
Audio here.
You're still there, Paul. I see you. Just can't hear you.
Yeah.
There it is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So after Raoul said that this was quite important to bring up at some point, but so over the course of, I got involved in this in 2015. Started with writing a report called Sudden Building Collapse and Evaluation of New Risk in Operational Firefighting. And the purpose of that was to try and get this information into the fire service, starting with Great Britain, to try and get some interest in the subject, because I was completely blown away by the fact that nobody seemed to be talking about it when it's so specifically in our wheelhouse, and it's part of our expertise. And the frustrating thing was that one realizes that the general public would be expecting the fire service to be talking about this, and we weren't. So I developed that report with compiling all the evidence and put it through various channels with some of the people listening in on this call right now to try and develop awareness. But unfortunately, that went through my particular fire service, North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, and it got taken via health and safety meetings. For those who are not aware, in the United Kingdom, if you encounter a new risk or a hazard in the workplace, you're legally bound by legislation to report that potential hazard. So we were using that piece of legislation as a means of bringing this subject to the fore and getting it discussed. Our fire service was obliged under duty to do that, and cutting a long story short, the senior management team at the time, who have all since retired, all agreed that there was no risk presented to them that made them feel that they needed to challenge our current operational procedures for high-rise firefighting. So that was very significant, but it didn't get us anywhere in terms of raising publicity, because obviously the fire service is a branch of government, and it's not going to raise its head above the parapet, and these officers aren't going to raise their head above the parapet in a way that's going to compromise their careers. So that didn't really have the desired effect. So we took it to the FBU, and the FBU, we had the backing of a number of notable people, like Cynthia McKinney did a letter of endorsement. She was a former Congresswoman or House of Representatives. We had Richard Gage put us in a supporting document, Eric Lawyer, the late firefighter, what is his name? Escaped at the moment.
Rudy Dent?
Rudy Dent, thank you very much, Alexander. And then Niels Harriot's information on the nanothermite as well. And the FBU at the EC level convened a special meeting, and they did a very, very good job of kicking it into the long grass and being very obstructive. And the long and short of it was, behind closed doors, there were certain members of the EC that agreed with our position, but they acknowledged that it was far too big a challenge or a subject, too controversial for them to take on, and it would be very detrimental to the fire brigade union to deal with it. So they kicked it into long grass and did their best not to deal with it. So having encountered all of those challenges, personally, I wasn't prepared to let it lie. And I thought, well, how can I get this information forward to as many people in the British Fire Service and then the American Fire Service in a way that it would hit home? It's very easy to present the evidence on this. The evidence is quite straightforward. I mean, as soon as I saw Building 7 coming down, thanks to one of my colleagues, I knew straight away that it was BS, basically. It wasn't possible. And I wasn't willing to accept that that was a rational explanation at the time. So I went away thinking that I maybe been given incomplete information. And the more I went away and studied it, the more I realized that what I'd been told originally was, in fact, an official government narrative, and it just didn't make any sense whatsoever. So the next step for me was trying to put the information into a format where it would land in the laps of people who would be prepared to sit down and go through all the evidence. The best way for that was to make a documentary. So I made Calling Out Bravo 7, and it was designed to target the fire service, starting with the British Fire Service and then hopefully reaching out. And one of the most striking things for me, after having released that film and shown it to all levels of the fire service, from firefighters through to senior officers and experts in fire safety and building construction, and sitting in some of their offices and talking to them about it, was they didn't come to me with questions about the evidence, because the evidence is quite clear cut. Their questions were, why is the American Fire Service not dealing with this? Why are they questioning this? And that is, to this day, a question that I struggle to answer. a bit more insight into after attending the NFPA in Orlando with Raoul and co, and speaking to some of the experts and people who were at 9/11. But still, to this day, that's something which is confusing for me and many others. On the mess deck, like we do in Great Britain, and talk about this coolly, calmly, objectively, and bring it to the fore. It's a subject that you can talk about. If anybody can talk about this without any criticism, it's firefighters. It's our responsibility. It's our profession. We have a duty to the public to be informing them properly. If they're being misled about something which is in our field of expertise, which this is, then we have a duty to speak to them about it. And one thing I'm hoping for in all of this is I'm a bit cynical, and I don't hold out a huge amount of hope for politicians doing the right thing, because they don't tend to historically do the right thing. They do whatever is right for the next election, etc. My hope is that Curt Weldon, Congressman Curt Weldon, has enough sway with the American Fire Service and certain individuals within the American Fire Service that he can create momentum within the fire service and initiate conversation around the mess tables, so that once that momentum starts rolling, it can't be stopped, and it won't matter what administration is in power. That momentum of the American Fire Service saying we're not happy with what we've been told about 9/11 will have the effect that we all desire. And that's about all I'd like to say, I guess.
That's huge. Thank you so much, Paul. I want to bring in one last important member of my team, and that's Richard Gage. Before we take more questions, I see Jerry and hands up, but I want Richard to chime in on what he's bringing forward in his lane. And then we can go back to questions, Gene, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Richard, if you're available.
Yeah, thanks, Raoul. I first want to let everybody know what it takes to make something like this happen. It's not 23 years of waiting. We worked our asses off, as has been mentioned, literally thousands of people. I started Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth in 2006, thinking that something like this would happen almost immediately. So I had to be woken up to the reality of how deep the deep state was, and it's extraordinary. Now, over the last 3 years, directly, we raised a lot of funds to get Raoul in front of the firefighters at the National Fire Protection Association conferences, where he and Eric Lawyer and myself and Paul Cayley gave a presentation for a half an hour on the floor of the exhibit hall in Orlando. And that was a landmark presentation that really woke a lot of people up and got the attention of the International Firefighters, the International Fire magazine, that Raoul was then invited to put an article in. So what I'm getting at here is that these opportunities that we raise funds for are not in vain. It took $10,000 to get us to Boston, and up to $17,000 because we had a double booth in Orlando. And it took everything we could pull together. And a special thanks to John Kolmanek, who made that happen. A good percentage of that. This is the presentation that the four of us gave, and it is awesome. And you can see it at the website protectingall.org. You can see the results of all three of our major efforts that we put together at these conferences. Extraordinary effort. So that now, we will be assembling the 5 different lanes. The lane that I'll be presenting
Whoops, sorry.
presenting for 18 years now, and that is the explosive demolition of all 3 World Trade Center skyscrapers on 9/11. We'll be looking at the evidence of explosions, that is high energy explosives, as well as thermite and nanothermite and thermate. So we'll put all of this together this week, in fact, so that, yeah, the Curt Weldon can present to these people in the Trump appointees the evidence, structural evidence of Building 7's impossible collapse. But in addition to that, the evidence in the aftermath of both ignited and unignited thermite, nanothermite, and thermate and high energy explosives is overwhelming, irrefutable, and scientific evidence. So I think personally, I think that's the most important evidence that we have, because you can't argue with it. The computer models will be argued with ad infinitum, and the jury will be left wondering who's right, he or she. But for me personally, I have had a whole lot more success with the explosive evidence and the incendiary evidence. So that's what we'll be putting together with, along with, of course, 156 testimonies of the first responders assembled by Professor Graham McQueen, which is by the oral histories of the first of those who were there. Right, they were recorded within a month after 9/11, and their testimony can't be argued with. Many of them heard explosions before the tower even collapsed, and many of them saw flashes of light again before the tower collapsed. So I'm really excited about bringing all this evidence to bear.
Thanks,
Rob.
Richard.
There was a great analogy that I heard Christopher Columbus in his diaries while he was sailing. There were days and days and days sailing the Atlantic where the only entry was continue sailing, sailing on, sailing on, sailing on, with nothing going on. But he had the vision. And then he lands and there's land. And we're here today in a sequence of events. But how many days transpired where there was nothing to report? But it was a process, and we've continued to sail on. And I'm standing on the shoulders of all you guys, because I'm, right now I'm the point guy, but I'm the last guy that joined this team. So, it's all your work that has really led to all this, the collective, collaborative work of every single one of you. So we can go back to questions, Gene.
Yep. There's a famous quote I just want to repeat. I say it all the time, from St. Augustine: in the essentials, unity; in the non-essentials, liberty; and in everything, charity or love. And I think 7 and what Curt Weldon is folks, this is the essential for us to focus on, and we will get to the other. And I know it's kind of a rough word, they're non-essentials, but they are essential, but not the spear of this, the tip of this spear right now. And everything we should do, we should treat each other with respect. And I have not been a great example of that in the past, but this is amazing that we're all here together for this greater cause. So thank you again, Raul, for leading this charge. We'll go to Jerry, Scotland.
Hello, Raul. Hopefully you can hear me.
I can.
Yeah. Well, great that this is being looked at an appropriate level politically. That it's getting traction. You made a point about Building 7 and about the Alaska study. The thing to understand here is that NIST were very explicit in their explanation about Building 7. A piece of steel this long that gets this hot will expand by this much and break this connection. In terms of the towers, they're less explicit. But if you look at their modelling, and in terms of what Leroy was saying about how amateur the modelling of the buildings was, if you look at the modelling of the North Tower at the floor model, they have omitted strap anchors, the welding and associated shear studs with them. They've omitted horizontal shear studs. They've omitted bridging trusses in one-way zones. These omissions and errors in this model for the North Tower make the whole Building 7 errors and omission look like an insignificant typo. And I was putting out videos about thermal expansion and stiffener plates back in 2011. Believe me, you have a much stronger case about the North Tower than you do about Building 7. You just don't have the study at that Alaska level. But you do have a stronger case there. And just the fact that NIST omitted these elements and admitted it, they actually cited computational efficiency as being their reason for doing so. When you think about that, we've moved on 22 years. We've moved on a long time. Computational efficiency has moved on. That validates the call to revisit that in ourselves. Don't forget that I'm imploring you not to forget that you have a stronger case, and a case which is more eye-catching to the public in terms of the Twin Towers than you do Building 7. Remember, a big bit of the literature around AE 9/11 and other organisations is few people know about this building. Remember that, because the Twin Towers are the prize, because that's what people want. That's where people died.
Right.
They
Hey,
made a worse job. And I
Roll-
just want to make that point to you. Thank you.
Roland, is Kamal on here? Is Kamal? Oh, okay. You want to address that one, Roland?
I don't think you can.
Or it's just something we need to consider. His point is well taken, right?
The Twin Towers computer model that NIST put together is not part of their report. They never released it. They said they didn't have the money to complete it. So we can't really rely on things that they haven't gone on the record for. And we can prove that the Twin Towers are now, they never gave an explanation for why the Twin Towers collapsed. They explicitly state in their report on the Twin Towers, buried in that 14,000 page report, is a statement that they accepted the theory that was put forward by Zdeněk Bazan, that the top parts of the building fell through the damaged zone, hit the bottom parts of the building with such force that it overcame the resistance and drove them all the way down to the ground. That is the official NIST explanation. They give no other. There's, unlike Building 7, there's no computer model that shows the buildings coming to the ground. They never released that. If they did it, and they may have, they didn't want to release it because they couldn't make it work. So, you can't, in my opinion, it's useless to take on an argument that they may have that they never published. What are they on the record for saying?
Can I just interject here? It actually says in this report that they removed those specific structural elements from their floor model.
Well, but they never released the model.
Yeah, they didn't release the data for the model, but the fact that they've not included those elements and cited computational efficiency means you've actually got a stronger case to have them revisit the North Tower than you do Building 7, because nobody died in Building 7.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of information that wasn't released, and all I can do is assure you that we would bring this to the Congressman's attention if in fact we do get that task force established. We got to get, that's the next hurdle.
We got to start somewhere. Yep.
Yeah, we got to start somewhere, and then I say after that, leave no stone unturned.
Thank you, Jerry.
There you go, Jerry. Thank you.
This is Eric. I couldn't raise my hand there. I want to say something that, like Richard, myself, what I've experienced with firefighters especially is it's what Raul's been saying is it's been enough years that we can look at this. To me, what's happened in the past with Towers 1 and 2 is it brings up so much emotion. And what we need here is we're going for not just the president, like Richard's saying, and so many, I don't trust the government at all. I think this is where we as humanity rise, and we're going to do something different. But what we do when we bring up the emotional stuff, it shuts everybody off. So if we can bring something that's more scientific, like Raul said, and bring in the science and keep it non-emotional as much as we can, then the questions start being asked.
Yeah.
And change things. So I'm with, everybody who wants to bring up all the stuff, but this is like a laser focused precision point, and it's for a reason. And I think we've all kind of seen it with 7. I shouldn't say we all, but with 7's the keystone. It's the thing that got me. And most, it's the thing that, oh my God, because I couldn't go to the depth of evil, you could say, when I looked at 1 and 2. But Tower 7, I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. So I think we're on the right path. And I also agree with what Will said, is we need to listen to all, approaches, but also know that we're going through the heart to get to the mind.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. Go to JB, then Al, then Mick.
Hey, I do thank everyone at this table for all of your time and talent over the years, getting us to where we are today. What impact might all of this excellent news have on the Bobby McIlvaine Act? Thank you.
I don't know anything about that.
Well, so they got together. They formed draft legislation, the Bobby McIlvaine World Trade Center Investigation Act. Unfortunately, none of the 535 congresspersons heard it, but I believe Curt Weldon, which kind of odd. I'd like to know what Curt Weldon. He had to have been presented that at one point, but this is now an opportunity for us to reintroduce that draft legislation to him, I would imagine.
By the way, I will say this. Who's the guy there? It's
JB.
JB. Once we get this done, once we get my document done, we're going to have another one of these forums here, maybe on a special date, so that everybody can see what everybody is submitting to the congressman. That way everyone is on the same page. Then I'm going to submit it to the congressman and have him come back on in this type of forum, so that if there's any other questions or points that need to be brought up, you'll have access or an opportunity to ask a question such as that. And so that's in the future. We can certainly try and accommodate that.
So this group I would consider are the movers and shakers of the 9/11 Truth Movement, and we maybe have an opportunity to speak to Curt Weldon in the future. I also should say on the, I lost my train of thought. Oh well. Curt Weldon is not wanting to go through Congress. He doesn't want to deal with bureaucrats at all on this, because he knows that's where we're going to get stifled. So he's going around them. So yeah, the Bobby McIlvaine World Trade Center Investigation Act was going through Congress. He wants to go around Congress. That's another good point to say. Thank you. Thanks, JB. We'll go to Al.
Yeah, observation, and Curt Weldon is, as a former firefighter, I don't know if anybody's directed him to PAPA, which is both the Boston convention and Orlando. I would think would have tremendous appeal to him. And the whole issue with PAPA is a safety issue about the command centers, and he should have that as part of his talking points, where we originally were going to go and confront NIST through the NFPA. And I still think that's a worthy cause. I know Raul doesn't feel as strongly about getting involved with contesting the NIST report by the NFPA, but Curt Weldon, he made it so clear about how emotional he is about the fire service, and that was the whole point of PAPA, is that we were protecting all protectors, and I think it's still very important for him to know about it.
Al, I'll get together with you on that after, so we get the wording just right, the way you would like it presented, and I'll put that in our bullet point under the firefighter lane, okay?
Great, appreciate it. Thank
And
you.
if I can just add, we did notice that Curt Weldon had added Papa to his favorites or those that he was following. I don't know if it was on X or it was on some social media platform. So it seems to me that he's well aware of Papa. I just don't know to what extent.
I don't know if I'll get to it. There were some clips. He had an interview with a guy named Wolf, Steve Wolf, I think. Yeah, Steve Wolf. He talks about the firefighters and how powerful the firefighters, some really, truly inspirational quotes he has in there. Maybe at the end after everything, I might share them. But yeah.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Mick. You are muted, sir. There it
Okay,
is.
thanks. So thanks to everyone for all those constructive comments. I totally support Raul's approach to this. I also totally believe that if his approach is used, it has a good chance of bringing out all the additional evidence. I think the evidence on Building 7 will lead to examination of the evidence on the towers, and the evidence on the towers will lead to the evidence of the cover-up, and that will take us to the broader issues. It's, pulling on the thread one step at a time, and I think that's the right approach. So I totally support it. I appreciate everyone's constructive comments here and hope we can stay together as a team to move this forward.
Excellent. Well said.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Mick.
sir.
Leroy would like to cut in. He's got to leave. So
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Leroy.
So I just wanted to let everybody know that I spent many, many months trying to make the NIST approach work, as well as two other contractors, and we couldn't make it scientifically to go together, and it was also violating the materials that was built on the building, and so it was not just our study. I took theirs, tried to make them work. 3 different groups, and that's why I'm very confident what we have. Besides being scientifically correct, plus I didn't tell you that I taught fire design at North Carolina State before I ever started doing it. I've also been in a fire. I have an understanding of what happens during those fires and how to protect yourself if you are in a fire. So just giving you a little snapshot of things that I didn't report in my report.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Leroy. Professor.
Yep. Have a good evening. Let's go to Ross.
Yeah. So, yes, just want to congratulate everybody on these developments, and not too surprising to me. Actually, I knew it would come at some point. I hoped it would come at some point. Anyway, I think there is another agenda going on. It is not our agenda, and that maybe not all of us are aware of, which is why this is coming to a fore right now. And it's very positive for us. It's very positive, but it's another agenda that I would listen to Jerry and be ready to pivot. I think we're familiar with the approach and the strategy that you've had with Building 7, and that's gotten us, arguably to where we are today. Although I think we could have gotten there sooner. Actually, no. What I just said was there's another agenda going on, and so it's coming to a point now because of that other agenda. So let's just be ready to pivot as quickly as you can. Don't belabor this 7. We have been belaboring it because it is for a lot of us, a very the issue that gets people started without getting them too emotional about the whole, the large scope of what the false flags are, and of course the biggest mistake the elites ever made, which was 9/11 false flags. So let's just be ready to pivot to the towers 1 and 2. As Jerry said, those are far more obvious, even for a scientific or even for the lay person, because it's basically right in front of your eyes. And then let's just be ready to look at things that we haven't really looked at yet in terms of, how do we see what we're seeing? What happened with that? Because we're still a little conventional there, and it's partially because we're focused on 7 and the obviousness of 7 and the scientific slam dunk that 7 is. So congratulations. There's another agenda going on. That's why it's happening now. Be ready to pivot.
Very good. Thank you, Ross. Anyone else have anything to discuss? Questions?
Chuck just
I'll make a remark. My video, should I?
Go ahead.
My video has failed. I don't know what's going on with it. But if this, assuming this investigation goes through and the Trump presidency advances a presidential commission or whatever it ends up being, and there's an actual result, let's say 2 years out. I mean, it's going to take 2 years, right? Minimum.
At least.
At least. See, so now we're good. Okay, so now we're punting. We're still waiting for, but in the end, you know, assuming that it comes out, there's going to be, it'll be like the JFK information finally coming out. I mean, 80% of Americans accept that we were lied to about JFK. Okay, this is like one of the big lies that is our country lives with. We accept that we're lied to. So now we're going to have another report that says, "Yep, you've been lied to," something we all know. So I guess the frustration for me in all of this is this conversation is occurring in the context of all of these big lies. My hope that in the end, this report would in effect give us ammo, just as where everyone's talking, give us ammo to really press the case for essentially the wickedness of the deep state. And what becomes of that is the big mystery here. And whether Truth Movement could build a big movement and capture the imagination of so many Americans that know that we really are being lied to. And then, I don't know, spin it, do something with it, act on it, and get some justice and accountability. That's my hope. And I'm really delighted with the work that Congressman Weldon has done. And his indignation is deeply felt. And I appreciate that indignation. I think that's the fuel of a truth movement that could make a difference. Chuck out.
Thank you, Chuck. I'm just going to go, if you guys don't mind, a 2.5 minute clip and then give some people their final statements, and then we'll sign out here. Here we go. This is Curt speaking to a gentleman. Actually, I didn't want to show that clip. I wanted to show this one. Here we go.
Well, we're going to ignite a bonfire in the country. Wow. I'm convinced firefighters can do anything. I saw it. I don't step back up. Look, I had a tough career. I took on the CIA in the end over 9/11.
I remember.
And I took them on, and I'm now proving what I knew. And I have good friends in the agency that work, and I'm a big supporter of Intel. But I cannot stand liars. I cannot stand liars. If you watch my podcast #2, I bring on the Able Danger team.
Wow.
Our military intelligence team, set up by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Hugh Shelton, identified 2 years before 9/11.
Yep.
The New York cell of Al Qaeda. They tried to
Brooklyn,
transfer
right?
the information about Muhammad Atta and the terrorists and were blocked. They were blocked primarily by a person that was on the 9/11 Commission. The 9/11 Commission covered up the facts. I can't stand that from bureaucrats. And I know 9/11 commissioners, friends of mine, that knew what was going on. The fire service America deserves the truth. And no unnamed, faceless bureaucrat deserves to be able to cover up their mistakes and get away with it, especially when you lose 343 firefighters, as we did there, and thousands afterwards. And my good friend Ray Downey was killed there. On 9/11, I got the call from the New York State Fire Marshal to get up to New York as soon as possible. I said, why? They said, well, obviously. I said, well, we're under attack here in D.C. also. They said, Ray's missing. I said, what do you mean Ray's missing? Ray Downey was the chief of all rescue at 9/11.
Yep.
Ray was overseeing the 342 other firefighters that perished. I brought Ray's widow and 5 kids down to my district 1 month after 9/11 to honor Ray as a hero. Ray Downey had joined with me. He was a member of the Gilmore Commission. And Jim Gilmore, the governor, is in my podcast. Jim Gilmore made the recommendation before the 9/11 attack with Ray on that commission, along with Bill Genoway, a fire chief that I put on that commission from King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. And the recommendation was to establish a national interoperable intelligence fusion center. It's ironic that we're doing this interview on November the 1st. 25 years ago tomorrow, Steve, November the 2nd of 1999, in my office, I had the Deputy Secretary of Defense, John Hamre, a good guy. At his request, I had the FBI and the CIA. And I handed them a proposal that I would fund to create a national fusion center of intelligence. Hamre said, I'll manage it. I said, I'll get it funded. The FBI said, we'll go along. And the CIA said, we don't need it.
Wow.
We don't need it. And you know what? They have hidden that story because they don't want to be embarrassed. Well, for the 343 firefighters that were killed and the thousands after, I don't care about embarrassment. The truth will come out, even if it's my last breath. Firefighters don't give up, Steve. They don't back down. I'm not backing down.
They find a way.
That's right. So my message to you is we got to wake up the country. I've just given you the ignition source. Get out there and light the fire. My podcast is Box Alarm Awakening America, and it's in with an ABC.
His last
guy.
statement right here was
We don't get any
really
pay.
good.
And the second one they want to watch, it's about 9/11. And I start to reveal the lies. And I'm going to reveal the lies. It's the last thing I do. For Ray Downey.
Right on. All right. I'll go to Roland and Andy. Any final takeaways from that interview with Curt?
Well, as I said, I think we're faced with a unique opportunity here, and it's had the effect of bringing a lot of diverse voices from the truth movement that have been fractured over time over one issue or another together again, and that's a great thing. And Weldon seems to be the person that is willing to take this to the president. I agree with his approach that we've tried to Congress and we've been unsuccessful in getting anybody to take this subject on. Trump seems to be the right person at the right time. He seems to be putting people around him that are interested in uncovering a lot of the abuses that have gone on in the past. And so I'm thrilled at this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone to make this happen. And we'll do every bit of what we can do to put our evidence forward in the most effective way possible and stay in our lane. And we'll just push this forward and do the best we can do. And that's what we've been doing all this time. And it's, now's our opportunity. We need to seize it.
Thank you, Roland. Andy?
All I'll just add to that is that, trying to get ready for that interview because it kind of came up quick. It never even occurred to me until afterwards. It's like, holy, you know what? I just interviewed a former congressman who's on all these committees. And the only other congressperson that I can think of that was so vocal about questioning 9/11 was Cynthia McKinney. We just interviewed Jill Stein, the third party Green Party presidential candidate at the anniversary event. We got very prominent people out there, Tucker Carlson, people on the left too from their podcasts. It's more people are more speaking out now, right? Way different than when I started this. This was like some kind of fringe thing considered by many people, and you couldn't even get this on the air without being called a name. So look where we've gone so far. And if you just stick with something long enough, its time is going to come. And that's why I've kind of stuck with this for so long and kept on doing this. And there's good times and there's bad times. But man, I've seen that so many times over and over again with other issues, not as heavy as 9/11. But, this one, Rome wasn't built in a day, didn't fall in a day either. It's not like a 2-hour movie where it all gets wrapped up in a short time frame. So if we got a little bit more time to put in, let's do it, because this is going to change the country and the world for many hundreds of years, I think, afterwards. And people are going to talk about this. And, nobody does anything they'd rather not do unless they're afraid of something else. So we're going to have to do that work of spreading the message and letting everybody know what's going on, getting the word out about Congressman Weldon, and getting that groundswell of support that I think is going to come. It's going to snowball as soon as everybody finds out that it's cool now, that it's being more acceptable. Then no, they're all going to join on, and we'll be like, oh my God, we're not so unique anymore. So that's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, the cracks are forming. Thank you for being here. Personal thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Raul, for that. Go to Trina real quick.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you for everybody's hard work. I love what I'm hearing come out of this meeting, and I am thrilled with the idea that there's so many of us in the room that have had the chance now to come together again after all of these years to move forward in one direction. I think the direct focus that I'm seeing come out of this, like to spearhead us all in one direction, is something that we haven't quite been able to achieve, and all of the fraction that has come along the way. We've all been quarantined off in outer areas. I think the idea of coming together and putting all of our focus, for the time being anyway, in this one direction is great. And I would like to be placed in the lane of activism and boots on the ground. I think this is, we've tried to do it in the past, team organizing around the country. I think now is a perfect opportunity to try to think about getting that going again. If we could all work together as a group to come up with some really great like publications or postcards or pamphlets that we could hand out, like for Tucker Carlson, naming the big people, our efforts, of course, Roland's, Weldon's, all of these pieces coming together. If we could put that on a postcard of some sort, with maybe on the back of it references to all of these great organizations that have contributed over the years, the links to everyone's websites. And let's resurrect the truth booth. Let's resurrect boots on the ground. I know, Jean, Sandra, that's your forte, my forte. That's how some of us all met here. And get out and support the work of all of these experts, professors, research scientists. Get behind it. I mean, I keep hearing that this is unique opportunity. This is amazing. I keep hearing all of these, inspiring words. And I just want to say that I'm here to act upon it with all of you. And years of hard work and dedication could finally truly come to fruition. I think public pressure, even if it's sitting in our living rooms with a new neighbor every night, going out, building community, just getting this information in front of the general public, people that aren't going to see it outside of this meeting, and getting those boots on the ground to get the public pressure built up behind these congressmen, behind the president, behind these initiatives would be probably something I could really get behind and help push it.
Let's continue with those ideas next Sunday in the War Room. So yeah, please continue to join.
Thank you, and great job, Jean, with this call and bringing everybody together.
Not me. It's a round table, and I thank everyone here that we're all equal on this. And just thank you. We're fantastic, just truly fantastic. Thank you, Trina. Go to Magnus.
We're not showing
We're
not showing videos, Magnus.
I understand that. So you're saying it's a meeting next Sunday, Gene?
Yeah, we're all every Sunday, any God-given Sunday, we'll be here at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Please, yep.
Okay, amazing. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, and I just going to send a Christmas gift to the Papa team, Richard Gage, and the LC team. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Magnus. Mr. Norway, the thumbs up.
Who's not afraid to go into fire stations and give out information and CDs and pamphlets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm using 9/11 original videos, and I'm using Larry's Castle 7 and the Koopas Towers because the same demolitions and it's the same place. It's it's just crazy that people are donating here because of 9/11 and that they are not aware of that there was a third skyscraper that fell, and it looks like Larry's Castle 7. So waking up all kinds of people here.
Thank you, sir. Yep. So I've never done it with this large of a group, but what I normally do at the end of the show is everyone gets 30 seconds just to say something. You can just pass or whatnot, or if you want to say something, I'm just going to go down through my whole list here. So Roland, anything signing off for this call?
Well, I think I've said everything I have to say. I want to thank you for putting us all together, and I'm looking forward to our future success as we move forward in this new arena, the political arena, for the first time in any meaningful way.
Excellent. Thank you. Raul.
I want to request if anybody has access to any photos from the south side of 7, we really need that because there isn't a lot of perspective. All the videos and photographs we have are taken from the north side. So if anyone has any access or finds one, we need that. I just want to end with this. I've been amazed with all the people that I've met, their tenacity to pursue the truth. You know, it's insatiable. They want the truth. And for me, this is not like it's not this big passion that I have to resolve. Like I said, I started just trying to defend my work. But I feel that I'm here like Leroy. He didn't get a chance to say it, or I don't know if he heard it. He feels it's a divine appointment for us to be here. And we've been placed here by God to carry out a certain part of the mission. And so, you know, I just want to say that the person who said he was the truth, that's what we're all doing, truth movement, follow the truth, was Jesus. In John 14:6, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the light. No one comes to the Father but through me. That's the real truth. Everything we've done here has no eternal value. 5 seconds after you're dead, it's not going to matter. You're out of it, you know. But if you miss the most important truth, you've missed the big question. You know, you got to be smart enough to not ask, well, what is the truth? The Christmas message, Gene is going to put a link. You can put it, Raul's Christmas message. There's a great sermon today that talks about what this is all about, the real truth. It's a great Christmas sermon. And if you link to that, it'll help make this a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. So thank you for all the support you guys have given me. So,
Amen. The link is in the chat. Everybody check that out. Thank you, Raul. Mike Cook.
Hey, I don't have a whole lot. I posted some names. Dennis Kucinich, my local congressman, Thomas Massey, Karen, I don't even know how do you say this, Kowalski. She was on with the judge Napolitano here recently, and we've met, talked somewhere, somehow. I don't remember exactly when and where. And I think she's on board. She's a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. And when in the hell is Richard going to get on Judge Napolitano's show? Right? And a whole bunch of other places. That's all I want. Thanks.
Right on, Mike. Thank you.
He did ask us to come on, but then he stopped answering phone calls after we rescheduled 3 times due to his issues.
Imagine that.
Yep. We're working on them. Mick?
So I appreciate everybody and their effort on this. I'm standing by to help out. I would just say, and I hope this works, and I think it has potential, but I would just say if it doesn't work, it's still moving the issue forward, and there'll still be a plan B. So persistence pays off. Stick with it.
Thank you, Mick. Greg Flynn, you're not around. You might be laying down. I'll come back to you if you want to say something. I'll go to Wayne.
Yeah. So the only thing I'm going to say, first of all, a great conference here, and appreciate all the enthusiasm. I just want to point out that I think one of the most important videos to get is the Roberta Robain, the original, because the screenshots were in the NIST NC STAR report, and the one that was released under the Freedom of Information Act is a terribly degraded, highly compressed version, and it's missing a section that I think is probably in the original, but was redacted when it was released. So to me, that's the most, and I put that in the chat. And so I think that is one of the most important things that you can get from the inside That's all. And again, thanks for everything. Over.
Thanks, Wayne. We'll be looking forward. Wayne and Craig McKee will be doing a Boston call. That'll be on Thursday, January 2nd. So looking forward to that. Lawrence, if you're there, anything for the group? Not seeing him. I'll come back to you. Bob, anything for the group?
Nothing that I haven't said before.
Oh, there you go. All right. Yep. Bob, anything for the group? Whoa, your audio is really bad.
Is better.
A little. We'll try it again. Go ahead.
Okay. Just wanted to caution people about speaking as if it were a total assumption that there were airliners crashed into the towers. That is at the very least a highly controversial item. And if you can follow laws of physics that say heaven could not have fallen the way it did, it was controlled demolition, then the way to analyze the plane crashes insists that no airliner ever flown could have crashed in that manner. And I don't know what's going on with the psychological that are going on here, but the idea that people can analyze the laws of physics in events and say that yes, building 7 had to have been a controlled demolition, and then the planes, oh, we talk about planes. No, the planes are bogus. And I'm sorry if I'm just the screaming rat on this, but I would like to caution, at the very least, tell people to say we are focusing on the towers and the planes are a separate issue, and I don't want to talk about that, but to speak as if it's an assumption planes were real, I don't agree.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. We can.
Tony's going to address that. Tony's going to address that in our firefighter component that he tried to get his students to fly that flight track and they were not successful. So that part of it will be addressed. Okay.
We could at least say that we agree that the planes didn't take the buildings down. We'll agree there. All right. Thank you, Bob.
Very happy to debate you publicly on this forum, Bob.
Yes, set it up.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right. First point of contention. All right. Craig, anything for the group?
Following that.
Uh-oh.
Please mute. There you go.
Sorry, I'm unmuted. Sorry, nothing much. Just other than I'm glad to be part of this and to help in any way I can. It just strikes me that with stuff we've seen in recent months, it is, as I think Andy said this, and I think it is sort of becoming acceptable to question 9/11 publicly. Even people who have very large audiences who may at one time have felt they had a lot to lose by mentioning 9/11 seem to be feeling like they're safe enough to mention it now. And it just seems like that's a moment in time that we this is all, the timing of this is all very very fortunate, I think, because it's just, we've got an opening here that who knows if this had come 10 years ago, where whether the people would have been ready for it or not. So this is hopefully kind of just perfect timing.
It's because we're retired.
Yeah.
That's right. I got a lot of time in my hands too. Yeah.
We'll go to Eli real quick since he put his hand up. Eli, go ahead. This will be your 30-second wrap up.
Yeah, hi guys. On the retirement point, I think that's a valuable point because a lot of people who in the past would have not comment in the firefighting and other fields are now retired and feel more like they have more freedom to comment. So I think that's one reason why the time is right. But my question would be, because I had to jump for a while, what are the action items and timelines based on today's conversation and what's happened? What are the next steps and what's the timeline for that?
I wanted to have the document ready before Christmas, but I'm not. But before the end of the year, certainly before the inauguration, because nothing's going to happen before that, is to compile like at least a 2-page. It's going to be a 2-pager, a bullet of the points that we're all making in our respective lanes, and turn that over to Weldon. We're going to have a meeting with him like this. First with ourselves, then with Weldon, so he can meet everybody, and then we turn it over to him. And after that, it's on his timeline, and we'll just be ready to respond to whatever he does. None of us, at least now, and he hasn't asked me, and I'm not sure if I really want to at this stage. We're not going to be part of the presentation to the Trump administration. That'll be him. And so really the timeline is till the end of the year for us to give him our document. And at that point, everything is up to Congressman Weldon.
Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Raul. Go to Magnus.
Thank you. You guys are very amazing. I'm so amazed to see Andy Steele and Roland here today, and everybody. It's just so good work that you are doing. So I'm going to donate a little more than I have afford to this month because you guys are so amazing. And I'm very surprised that there are going to be a meeting in this Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Wow. Thank you
Magnus.
so much, everybody.
Miles, great to see you, brother. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. And this is an amazing group. I'm working and I'm going to be getting some help from Gene into this open letter I wrote to the king and to the chiefs of Treaty 7 territory.
So just give it
Yeah.
background that you are from Canada. And there we go. Writing to the king. Yes.
It says, Ralph Nader said, write your head of state if you have issues. And the king came out on the second anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, saying that it was unprovoked. And that's a narrative that was just very quickly promoted by mainstream media. But there's so many leading historians, ambassadors who were, at the table when discussions about not expanding NATO were made. And these people are all cut out from mainstream media. And this is what's the same situation with respect to all that we're talking about here today. And consequently, I'll just say that my letter is about Quest. What is it? Why are we here? You're in Canada, I'm in Canada, you're in the United States. Well, let's really get back to fundamental values and vision, and that it's not we're not here for conquest. We're not here to demolish other people. We've got to get back to the foundations of the Holy Scriptures, the 7 sacred teachings of Indigenous people. And that's what my letter's about. And I have 7 questions I take to the king and to the chiefs of Treaty 7. And one of them references crime scene to courtroom and ethical spaces, which the grand jury is fascinating to me because it is an ethical space where ordinary citizens come together in a very organized formality and to talk about questions. The questions are endless, but my letter has 7, and once I get, hopefully it's on my LinkedIn, and Gene's going to help me make the links work.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Thank you. If anybody's prayer warriors out there, Miles could really use your prayers right now. So thank you, Miles. Good to see you. Love you. Andy, anything for the group, sir? Getting to the mute button slowly. Oh, you're still muted.
Nothing really. Just keep the eyes on the prize and just a few more miles to go on this. So that's it.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for being on the team, Andy.
David.
So I think this is a huge breakthrough. I'm so impressed. Thank you, Raul. And that's it.
Right on. Thank you, David. Things are moving faster than free fall almost. Barbara, anything for the group?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm in the car. The first thing I want to say is I agree with Sandra. for this to happen, we all have to take risks. And these are real risks. So you achieve your goals in life when you commit to a goal no matter what. So that's number one. Number two, I would like to second and third the message that we heard from Jerry and Ross. And that is, I fully agree that it's important to be focused on the tip of the spear, which is World Trade Center 7. But I also agree with Jerry and Ross, 1,000%, that the whole point of that is to, as Ross said, pivot to the World Trade Center towers. And I'm not sure that Raul knows this critical fact, but I know Richard Gage does. And that is that when you get to the towers, the most important fact, as far as I'm concerned, that any kindergartner can grasp, even more so than the World Trade Center 7, is that there were massive explosions in the basement of both towers before the planes hit either tower. 14 seconds before the first tower and 17 seconds before the second tower. Now that's really critical, and it cannot be left out. And my final comment is, I fully agree, as Richard Gage knows, because I've been telling him this for years, and that is that I fully agree with Curt Weldon. Congress is never going to reopen a new investigation of 9/11, nor should we want that. My book, October Surprise, on the true story behind the Iran side of Iran-Contra, has been confirmed a zillion times over by deathbed confessions and many other pieces of evidence. And it resulted in a full subpoena power congressional reinvestigation of the Iran side of Iran-Contra. But that reinvestigation was infiltrated, and it was a worse cover-up than the original. So I fully agree with Curt Weldon. Don't even think about going back to Congress. And my last is to thank Raul, because from my point of view, the real turning point, the real pivot point of history, Winston Churchill referred to the hinges of history. And I personally believe that it was your article and your courage in writing it that led to Curt Weldon, and that the real hinge of history was your coming forward. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thanks, Barb. Eric.
Oh, this is
It's
so.
your fault, dude.
He keeps telling me if I'd gone to another station on that fateful day in 2008 when I landed this in his lap, that he would be here.
If you would have taken the overtime assignment to engine 11 instead of engine 33, I'd be in Puerto Vallarta right now, smoking cigars and sipping on tequila. But no, you had to go to 33s.
And the world's going to be a better place, already is, because of it. No, I'm just humbled. I'm grateful. And it's, to me, this is exemplifying the fire department culture, which leads to the world like we're all inviting in, with Jesus, I'm the way, I'm the truth, the light. The fire department culture, I feel drawn to seed more of that in humanity. And one of the sayings we used to have on our crew was, when the bunking gear appears, everything else disappears. And what we meant was, when the bell hits and we have to put on our protective clothing to go into fire together, all of our bullshit disappears. And that's what I want to land here, is the same team, because we're bringing together, it's happening right now, an incredible consortium of people that have dedicated their lives to this. And you're not on this call really unless you have a key piece to play, and we're all on this divine assignment. And there's going to be things that come up where I want this and I want that. And the more we can relax into, we're on the same team, the same mission. And it's not about getting 9/11 truth out there. It's
Same
about
team, same team.
same team. Yeah. And that's what we would do, is in a fire, if people started butting heads and getting into an argument over something stupid, somebody would yell out, same team. And I do that because it's in a mask and it's hard to hear, but you same team, same team.
And I want to instill that here today is like, if anyone sees anyone butting heads in a way that's not constructive and it's going to divide something, let's call each other in. Hey, we're on something way bigger. And it's just, to me, it's just like, this is divine. This is not just divine. It's like, it's divine
Providence.
providence. That's the word. Thank you. So thank you to Raul. All of us here, but Raul's got this gift, as you can see. He was like this in Seattle. And it's, you just have this natural knack of bringing, like, helping people come together in a conversation that can, like, and I'll just finish with this. The day in that station when I brought this forward, so many people had been already attacking me, wanting me shut up, wanting to beat me up, wanting to do a lot of things. But the space Raul held in that station, they all listened to me and they gave me the space to say what I wanted to say. And at the same time, they didn't believe what I said. So it was like you were able to bring in the people that were having a hard time to connect together. And that's what you're doing now. And this is your gift. And thank you.
That ripple really went far.
Yeah.
Eric. Thank you. Jack Bottomley. Anything for the group, sir?
Yes. First one is an aside to Ted and whoever else is interested. The Cantor Fitzgerald, I've seen evidence that people at the top made huge paydays on 9/11. So I'd just keep in mind that that guy may not be on our side. Maybe I could be wrong. And the other thing is that Jeffrey Sachs being interviewed by Tucker Carlson last week or this week, he says that the deep state is not done. We're going after Iran and Russia and China too. So what we're doing now is very important because they're not done and they're making a big profit on it.
Yep. Buckle up for inauguration. Yep. Thanks, Jack. Richard, anything for the group?
Sure. I think one of the unsaid beauties of Curt Weldon's response is to draw together the fractions of the 9/11 truth movement, as inspired also by Raul, who seems to have handpicked the very people who have had difficulties with one another. And this call may be the first and prominent inspiration that could draw us back together as we have to work together now to make this happen. It's a God thing, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. Right on. Thank you. Raul's Ocean's 9/11, I guess. Who got Chuck Fall?
How about Leroy? Leroy would like to speak.
Oh, he's back? Yeah, sure.
Back.
So I wanna just say, as a researcher, having taken on this task earlier on at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, my heart is bleeding it today for the pain and the anguish that families and firefighters went through on September 11th, my anniversary, my wedding anniversary. I couldn't. I just, to this day, it bothers me so much that our country allowed this to happen. I don't want to ever see that happen again. I pray to God that we can get things figured out and give a positive direction to. And I'm so thankful that you all were here today. I just can't get over how positive this makes me feel, that we can all come together and recognize the importance of the families that lost our families and our friends. I even lost students. Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leroy. Professor Halsey. Yeah, this is the Christmas time. This is the Christmas spirit. This is it. Thank you. Chuck?
Yep. Very, very briefly, Congress Weldon is very exciting, and the prospect of firefighters could be the tip of the spear of a truth accountability vanguard is huge, no question. But but Weldon also in the A&E presentation showed how long he spent his time in his silo understanding 9/11. And it was only late in the game that he really fully comprehended the scope of what really happened. And the big lie about Building 7, for example. I put a link into the chat for David Hughes. He is basically points out that the 9/11 event is part of has a history of prior events, and now we're suffering omni-war, these almost invisible actions by deep state plutocracy against we the people. So movement building is what we is important to me, and I think that people understand that, and I think there's a willingness to break out of silos and build this big movement, and I'm excited for that too. Okay, Chuck out.
Thanks, Chuck. Yeah, I think that's why Raul's so able to talk to Curt, because Raul was in that silo too for the longest time. Yeah, so thank you, Chuck. Trina, if you're there, trying to get to the mute
Yes,
button.
thank you. I was going to say, yes, Jane, this is it. I think, the room's feeling it. My thanks to you, Professor Halsey, and everyone else here. I'm honored to be on the call. To me, you're all heroes. So thank you so much for inspiring and for leading the charge. Thank you so much. And I'm just here for all of it. Justice for Bobby, the 343, the troops we've lost along the way, the death and destruction of our country, the loss of liberty. I'm here for it. Justice, peace, and thank you all. Godspeed.
Thanks, Trina. Dr. Ross, anything for the group?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, in terms of this other agenda I mentioned, we had an election recently. I think people are aware. And if you look at the numbers, 23% voted for Kamala Harris, 25% for Donald Trump, and half the people didn't vote at all. And those people are not people who are apathetic or uneducated or not interested in the future, or these are eligible voters that half did not vote. Guess what? Now a lot of them are millionaires. And that's because a lot of them are anarchists who invested in cryptocurrencies, which, as we all, I think, on this call know, is not the path to take in the long term. But these people have become millionaires. They are a large segment of our society. They are very intelligent. Over history, the anarchists have been well publicized in terms of their opposition to government malfeasance, and so we're in a very, very powerful position now. And this is moral money. I'll call it the M&Ms. We are now moral money. I'm not one of them, unfortunately, actually, fortunately, because then once you start getting money, you start getting your focus changed. But the M&Ms are very powerful. This agenda is in opposition to them. Maybe depends on how this all plays out. But the bottom line is the linchpin of the paradigm change of history is 9/11 truth, and that's what the people on this call will be responsible in history for, known as being responsible in history for bringing that truth and that linchpin paradigm change. However it falls out, bottom line is it has to do with the truth. Can they put people under the bus and can they make it a half truth? They can, but it may be in their best interest to might as well take it all the way to the full truth. And anyway, even a half truth on it, if there's a paradigm change like there has to be, that contains 9/11, the biggest mistake the elites ever made, that's going to be a positive development. So congratulations to everybody.
Thanks, Ross. go to Josh. And before Josh, you speak, we didn't get a chance to get into news this week. Well, we did. Very big news. But I did also point out last week we talked about Matt Campbell and the success they're having with the inquest in the UK. Josh wrote an article in LouRockwell.com. I'll put this in the show notes concerning that, short but sweet, and he's getting it out there. This is exactly this kind of stuff we're looking for with taking the Curt Weldon news, take it to these alternate news sites and spreading that information. So we'll go to Josh.
Good evening. Thank you for showing everybody that blog post. I'm excited that 9/11 truth, the pursuit for the truth remains strong, and it seems that we're gaining momentum, especially with the inquest in the United Kingdom. That effort to get a new inquest, the development with the former Congressman Curt Weldon. He has connections to people in government that can get that message across. And I think for everybody, just keep on trying to get the truth out there, whether it's talking about the destruction of World Trade Center towers, the various intelligence agencies monitoring the hijackers before 9/11 and doing nothing about it or facilitate their travel to the United States. I just think it's important to expose this to the public. I still think the public is kept in the dark about these anomalies with 9/11. And if we could get the public on our side, then that would really go a long way towards trying to get some sort of truth. And if we can't get that truth, we can at least have the public, hopefully the public could understand that the US government, the media, they all lied to us about 9/11. So thank you for a very interesting discussion tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much, Josh. I think there is a general awakening going on anyway, and that's kind of in our favor too, for other reasons. And it's just, yeah, it's just going to help along the road. Gene just had well, there he is.
Okay.
We kind of lost the order a little bit because
Josh is done.
people, yeah.
Brian, anything for you, sir? Jerry, anything for the group?
Yeah, just to say that it's definitely a positive move, the direction that things are going in, and that level of attention and things moving quickly. It's definitely one of the most positive developments in times that I've seen. And that doesn't happen by itself. That happens through a lot of effort, and I think people here on this call represent a lot of that effort. So well done and thank you. And particularly Eric. I want to say, when I saw you at that, the press club thing that got done all those years ago, I knew we were getting somewhere that night when I listened to you. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can you pronounce
Gina,
that name?
one more thing, since I had very little to say before.
Yeah, go ahead.
Regarding the hijackers was just brought up again, and alleged should always be used because there is a lot of controversy about whether there were or actually were not people on the aircraft that struck the towers.
Fair enough. Non-essential, but yes. Thank you. Can you pronounce his name?
I'm gonna guess Gula, but that would be if his name was German, so I don't know.
If you're there, Mike, if you have anything to share. For the people that I referenced, I think it was Greg Flynn, if you're there, Brian Good, if you're there, or Guven, if you're there. Not, Sandra, anything for the group?
There's nothing that I'm gonna say that hasn't been said 10 times today, and you all know what that is. Grateful, yes, turning point, everything, all of that. I just want to thank everyone, and I just want to say that I have so much love in my heart right now for everyone here and for everyone who's been doing their part for so long. And, where this takes us, we don't know, but, we're all still going to keep on doing our thing. We're not just going to let, Weldon run with it and just, well, ciao, see you later. Nice job. And, no, we're all going to keep on doing it, and we're all going to do what we're good at. And hopefully we can lean on each other for the things that we're not good at so that others can help us. And yeah, just thank you to
Hey,
everyone.
Gene, are you linking Andy's podcast with Weldon?
Oh yeah, I've done that.
Okay.
Yeah, if I'll just put it right now. If anybody, yeah, it's right there.
Just wanna
You
make
have
sure to
not
see
seen this, you need to see this. You will feel inspired. He's definitely got some gusto. Just an amazing thing. I wanted to go out with a video. The last statement he made in the one video clip. If I could do this real quick. Now I'm getting too many screens. By the end of a show, I got way too many screens opened up. But we're going to go with this right here. It was his last statement. I love this, and I think it should send us off.
And I start to reveal the lies. And I'm going to reveal the lies. It's the last thing I do. For Ray Downey.
There it is. Thank you all for being here. Merry Christmas. We're
Merry
now on the
Christmas.
next longer day. Things are looking up for us, so keep the faith. Have a good evening and a great week. We'll talk to you next time.
For anybody who wants to be here next Sunday, we'll be here.
Thank you.
See you
Sandra.
next Sunday.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
About 9/11. And I start to reveal the lies. And I'm going to reveal the lies. It's the last thing I do. For Ray Downey.